Chapter 3691. Listening to Shangguan Yingying's words, Bailey Hongzhuang glanced around and nodded. Okay, if you find it, call me. No problem. If you see any resources you like, you can also tell me. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and blinked, giggling. Okay. Shangguan Yingying nodded. I actually don't need anything now. The most important thing is to help you find treasures that can help improve your spiritual power. After the two separated, Bailey Hongzhuang shuttled through these counters. There were indeed many treasures here. Every one of them was something that cultivators would be envious of. Many things that were rarely seen or appeared in auctions could be seen here. This also made Bailey Hongzhuang understand how deep the heritage of Penglai Palace was. Many of the things here are difficult to find even in auctions on ordinary days. I didn't expect that you can exchange them with points here. It seems that this Penglai Palace has included many precious treasures. Xiao Bai looked at the many treasures in front of her and couldn't help but sigh. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Indeed, Penglai Palace can have such a status. It is precisely because there are resources that other places can't have that it can attract so many cultivators. This was the attraction of a big force. Perhaps the treasures that couldn't be found in other places could be easily obtained here. There are so many treasures here. If we can take some away, we will be rich. Xiao Hei's eyes flashed brightly, her hands constantly rubbing. Her excited look was like she was having a beautiful dream. She was almost drooling. Looking at Xiao Hei's eager look, Bailey Hongzhuang quickly said, Xiao Hei, don't have any ideas about these treasures. This place looks very ordinary, but there are definitely many strong cultivators. As long as someone dares to have any thoughts of robbing, they will definitely be subdued in the first place. As early as when she walked in, Bailey Hongzhuang had already felt several auras here. These were definitely the auras of strong cultivators. At the very least, with her current cultivation, she was no match for him, so it was better for her to stay put. Upon hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Xiao Hei could not help but droop her head. Sigh, there are so many treasures that I can only look at. What a waste. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. Penglai Palace must have spent a lot of effort to get so many treasures. It would be strange if you could take them away so easily. All right. Xiao Hei pursed her lips. Master, speaking of which, there are very few treasures that can increase one's mental strength. We've seen all sorts of treasures along the way, but we haven't seen any that can increase mental strength. Such treasures are rare to begin with. Let's be patient. If we really don't have any, we can think of something after we go to the demon training tower. Although the demon training tower was different from the Penglai Palace, there were also many treasures there. However, just as Bailey Hongzhuang, Xiao Hei, and Xiao Bai were searching and talking, Shangguan Yingying's voice suddenly came from not far away. Chapter 3692. If I say it's mine, then it's mine. Chu Yunyao glanced at Shangguan Yingying indifferently. After noticing Shangguan Yingying's clothes, the disdain in her eyes grew stronger. You're just an outer palace disciple. How dare you snatch something from me? Don't you want to stay in Penglai Palace? What a big tone. Shangguan Yingying frowned coldly. Although I haven't been in Penglai Palace for a long time, it's rare to see someone as unreasonable as you. Oh. Chu Yunyao's lips curled up a little. So you're new. No wonder you're so daring. Since you're new, I'll kindly advise you that you'd better not snatch things from inner palace disciples in Penglai Palace. Otherwise, you'll be in trouble. Chu Yunyao patted Shangguan Yingying's chest, her eyes full of ridicule. Be good and let go of your hand. Even if you really want this thing, I'm afraid you don't have enough points to exchange for it. Don't look down on me. Shangguan Yingying glared. I'm also an inner palace disciple. Who said I don't have points to exchange for it? I got this thing first. Even you inner palace disciples don't have the right to snatch it. Chu Yunyao was slightly stunned. She looked at Shangguan Yingying's appearance and couldn't help laughing. Ha ha ha, you said you're an inner palace disciple? You didn't just come today, did you? Don't you know that the clothes of inner palace disciples and outer palace disciples look the same, but in fact they are different? With your appearance, it's ridiculous to pretend to be an inner palace disciple. Shangguan Yingying looked down at her clothes and felt a little helpless. She had just been promoted to inner palace disciple today. so she didn't immediately change into inner palace disciple's clothes. Who would have thought that she would encounter such trouble? Cut the crap. In short, I've taken a fancy to this thing. I won't give it to you. Don't even think about it. With that, Shangguan Yingying grabbed the thing with both hands. From her serious expression, one could tell that she would definitely not hand it over. She had been looking for a long time but hadn't seen a treasure that could improve mental strength. She thought it was gone. She didn't expect to see it on the counter behind her. Naturally, she was extremely happy. Since she came to Penglai Palace, she always felt guilty to Bailey Hongzhuang because she couldn't help her. Anyway, she was very happy to find this treasure. At least it was something that could help Hong. However, just when she took it in her hand, a woman grabbed her hands handed over. She had never seen such an unreasonable person. But she had never seen such an unreasonable person. If you hand the item over to me now, I can let bygones be bygones. If you continue to be stubborn, don't blame me for not warning you. A hint of impatience flashed in Chu Yunyao's eyes. With her reputation in the inner hall, how many people dared to snatch things from her? What can you do if I don't give it to you? Shangguan Yingying looked at Chu Yunyao coldly. She didn't want to cause any more trouble. After all, they had just entered the inner palace and the inner palace disciples were strong. It was not good to cause trouble. Chapter 3693. If you don't hand it over. Chu Yunyao's eyes suddenly became cold. In this Penglai Palace, it's normal for inner palace disciples to kill a few outer palace disciples. When Bailey Hongzhuang arrived and heard this remark, her slender willow leaf eyebrows suddenly wrinkled. In her sight, she saw a woman wearing a red gauze dress, outlining her graceful figure. Her long black hair was elegant and moving, and even the hairband was dazzling red. Ostentatious, dancing, proud, disdainful. At first sight, Chu Yunyao gave Bailey Hongzhuang such a feeling. At this moment, Chu Yunyao was looking down at Shangguan Yingying, as if the latter was an ant that could be pinched to death with a light pinch. Yingying, what happened? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Shangguan Yingying, and her eyes suddenly fell on the lavender fruit in her hand. Yunling fruit. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately recognized the origin of this fruit. Among the many heaven and earth treasures, there were not many that were useful for mental strength, and this Yunling fruit belonged to one of the more outstanding ones. It was just that this Yunling fruit was rarely seen, even in auctions, so Bailey Hongzhuang did not have much hope. She did not expect that there would be a Yunling fruit here, but after seeing the Yunling fruit and then looking at Shangguan Yingying and Chu Yunyao, she had already roughly understood what had happened. When Chu Yunyao saw Bailey Hongzhuang for the first time, her expression froze for a moment, her pupils could not help but dilate a little, and a strong shock flashed in her heart. Beautiful, exquisite, otherworldly beauty. In a short moment, many words flashed in Chu Yunyao's mind. She had never seen such a beautiful woman. Even as a woman, she had to admit that this was a face that could turn all living things upside down. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, it would have been hard for her to believe that there would be such a wonderful person in this world. All along, she had boasted that her appearance was outstanding, and her sister Chu Yunshang was the most beautiful person in her heart, but she never thought that today, her firm belief would actually waver for a moment. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang coming, Shangguan Yingying frowned and whispered, "Hongzhuang, I got the Yunling fruit first, but she insisted that I give it to her. I didn't want to, so she wanted to take it by force." Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's expression changed a little, but her expression was very calm. She had vaguely heard the conversation between Shangguan Yingying and Shangguan Yingying, so she understood. "I am Chu Yunyao of the Inner Palace. This Yunling fruit is exactly what I need." Chu Yunyao still raised her chin, and there was no modesty in her words. So what if the woman in front of her was very outstanding? Whatever she took a fancy to was hers. This was because she had already noticed that Bailey Hongzhuang was also wearing the uniform of an outer palace disciple. As long as it was an outer palace disciple, she would not pay attention to it at all. "If you give this Yunling fruit to me, I can give you some benefits. If you refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit, then don't blame me for being rude." Chapter 3694. Master, this woman is really arrogant. It's disgusting. Xiao He lazily looked at Chu Yunyao in front of her. Although they had not stayed in Penglai Palace for a long time, most people were not so annoying. It's really an eye-opener for her to be so righteous when she snatches people's things. Xiao Bai was also speechless for a while. I think this woman's disgust is comparable to that of Duan Huali. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Chu Yunyao indifferently and said, "We have no interest in your so-called benefits. We'll take our leave first. Goodbye." As soon as her voice fell, Bailey Hongzhuang took Shangguan Yingying's hand and prepared to leave. From the first time she saw this woman, she felt that this woman must be the type who would easily cause trouble. She really had no interest in being entangled with her. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang did not give her face, Chu Yunyao's face suddenly turned cold and her eyes were covered with a layer of haze. "Did I say you can go?" The threatening voice was cold and Chu Yunyao's gaze was like a sharp blade shooting straight at the backs of Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying. With her reputation, the outer hall disciples had always been eager to please her. At this moment, she had already introduced herself and the other party still dared to not give her face, which naturally aroused the anger in her heart. However, Bailey Hongzhuang did not pay attention to Chu Yunyao's words at all, and continued to move forward without stopping. In her opinion, Chu Yunyao was completely used to throwing tantrums and actually thought that everyone should revolve around her. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang completely ignored her threat, Chu Yunyao's face became more and more unsightly. This person dared to embarrass her like this. Damn it! Chu Yunyao secretly spat. Her figure moved and quickly blocked in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying. "Do you think that you can successfully take the thing away after walking out of this resource hall? Once we leave the resource hall, the spiritual cloud fruit is ours. What's wrong with taking it away?" Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were cold and her words were as cold as ice. Chu Yunyao chuckled. "You have to see clearly that the points required for this cloud spirit fruit are not enough for you as outer hall disciples. You don't have to worry about that. Just because you don't have enough doesn't mean that we don't have enough." Bailey Hongzhuang lifted her delicate chin and her beautiful eyes flashed with a cold light. Although she did not like to look for trouble, this spiritual cloud fruit was exactly what she needed. There was no way she would give it away. "You!" Chu Yunyao glared at them. "If you dare to go out, I guarantee that you won't see the sun tomorrow." At this moment, Chu Yunyao's eyes also became ruthless. It was just an outer hall disciple who dared to be so arrogant in front of her. She was really angry. It seemed that she would have to teach these two newbies a lesson for not knowing the immensity of heaven and earth. What big words! The corners of Bailey Hongzhuang's lips suddenly rose and her smile was bright and mocking. "I'm afraid it's not that easy to take my life. Since senior sister wants to try, then I'll wait for you." As soon as these words came out, Chu Yunyao could not help but be stunned. The incredulity in her eyes grew stronger. She had never thought that this woman would be so unyielding and ignore her threat. Chapter 3695. Just as the conflict between the two sides was getting more and more intense, a voice suddenly rang out, "Chu Yunyao, why don't you give me some face and let this matter drop?" With this voice, both Chu Yunyao and Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. However, when they saw the person who had come, their expressions were somewhat complicated. "Duan Huali?" Chu Yunyao looked at the strong and tall figure in front of her in surprise, as if she didn't expect to see him here. Duan Huali slowly walked over with his hands behind his back. His handsome face was filled with a graceful smile. "Chu Yunyao, you're a senior sister after all. It's unbecoming of you to be like this. They're my friends. Why don't you give me some face and let this matter drop?" "It's Duan Huali. I didn't expect to meet him here." A cold light flashed in Shangguan Yingying's eyes. She remembered clearly that Duan Huali had sent people to the training ground of the outer hall to attack them. She didn't expect that he would come to help them now. It was really funny. Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes. She didn't expect to meet him so coincidentally. Ever since she handed over the prescription of the healing medicine, she hadn't seen Duan Huali. She only thought that Duan Huali knew that their identities were different from before, and didn't dare to cause trouble for them anymore. This was also what she was happy to see. However, she didn't expect to meet him today. Although Duan Huali was speaking for them at the moment, it also told her that Duan Huali hadn't given up yet. If he had given up, Duan Huali would definitely not have come to cause trouble at this time. Since we came back, we haven't seen Xue Changdong. In my opinion, Xue Changdong most likely died at the hands of Duan Huali. Shangguan Yingying lowered her voice and said, "Does this guy think that we don't know anything, so he wants to be the good guy?" They had inquired about Xue Changdong as soon as they returned. After all, this guy had almost put Di Beichen and the others in danger. It would be out of character if they did not teach him a lesson. However, they did not expect that they would not get any information about Xue Changdong even after asking so many people. It was as if Xue Changdong had completely disappeared after returning. However, they still heard from a cultivator that Xue Changdong had been to the inner hall. In this way, it was easy to determine the next piece of news. Killing people to silence them was really in line with Duan Huali's style. Bailey Hongzhuang thought for a moment and said, "Maybe Xue Changdong didn't reveal any information before. Maybe he thought that we didn't know anything. If that's the case, then this Duan Huali is really funny." Shangguan Yingying sneered in her heart. "I'd like to see what this Duan Huali is going to do." Bailey Hongzhuang looked indifferent. In her heart, she had already labeled Duan Huali as a dead man. It was just that she could not take his life for the time being. However, the final result was certain. Di Beichen was the person she cherished the most. This guy wanted to do something to the person she cherished the most. She would not forgive him. Chu Yunyao looked at Duan Huali indifferently and suddenly smiled. "Duan Huali, I have never seen you have any hobby of helping others. Could it be that you have taken a fancy to this new female disciple this time?" Chapter 3696. Haha. Chu Yunyao chuckled. "I've known you for so many years. Don't tell me I don't even know your temperament? You've always been unable to take your eyes off beautiful women. This woman's appearance is so outstanding. It would be strange if you could let her go." Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but look at each other. It seemed that their expectations were really right. It was because of Bailey Hongzhuang that Duan Huali attacked Di Beichen and Wen Xiren. However, Shangguan Yingying didn't understand. Why didn't Duan Huali kill her as well? Did he think that she was not a threat because she was a woman? Duan Huali frowned slightly. "Chu Yunyao, why are you saying these irrelevant things?" Looking at Duan Huali's very nervous appearance, afraid that she would say something she shouldn't say, Chu Yunyao's eyes became gloomier. She had known Duan Huali for many years, so she naturally understood Duan Huali's temperament. Even if he always had a lot of women around him, he never minded. But what was going on now? She had never seen Duan Huali like this. Thinking of this, Chu Yunyao couldn't help but glance at Bailey Hongzhuang. After seeing the latter's indifferent and casual appearance, her heart gradually sank. Could it be that Duan Huali was serious this time? Did he really like this woman? At the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang also noticed Chu Yunyao's constantly changing face. For some reason, she felt that there seemed to be a lot of stories in Chu Yunyao's expression. Anyone could see the reason why Duan Huali suddenly stood up and spoke at this moment, but Chu Yunyao looked like she had lost her soul, which was a little strange. The next second, Chu Yunyao's expression returned to normal. She said, "Duan Huali, if this Yunling fruit is what I want, I will do you a favor. But this Yunling fruit is what my sister wants, so I can't do you a favor." Duan Huali couldn't help but frown when he heard this. "You did it on purpose?" Chu Yunyao's face turned cold. "Duan Huali, I have no intention of playing with you. Weren't you interested in my sister before? You caused such a huge commotion back then. Don't tell me that you're going to snatch my sister's things for the sake of 2 outer palace disciples?" Duan Huali's expression froze when he heard Chu Yunyao mention the word sister. At this moment, seeing Chu Yunyao's words, his expression couldn't help but become even uglier. "Nothing happened between me and your sister. Even if we talk about it, it's just a matter of the past. What's the point of mentioning it now?" "Haha," Chu Yunyao sneered. "Yes, how could I forget that you have always been fickle? All women are just your temporary interest." "Master, why do I feel that the atmosphere between Chu Yunyao and Duan Huali is a little unusual?" Xiao Hei rubbed her chin, her face full of gossipy expressions. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Indeed, there should be a story between the two of them. Otherwise, it shouldn't be like this. She clearly noticed that the smile on Chu Yunyao's lips was self-deprecating, which was very strange. According to the content of their conversation, there should be something between Chu Yunyao's sister and Duan Huali, but why did Chu Yunyao laugh at herself? Chapter 3697. Chu Yunyao, I just want to ask you if you're willing to do me a favor. Why are you talking about all this nonsense? Duan Huali frowned. If he had not been forced to, he would not have wanted to meet Chu Yunyao at all. This woman was completely troublesome. Since he knew that Bailey Hongzhuang had concocted such a healing medicine, he felt that Bailey Hongzhuang was different from the rest. This woman was not only beautiful, but also strong and talented. As an inner disciple, he knew too well that this healing medicine had solved the problem that had troubled everyone for many years. Bailey Hongzhuang could do it so easily, which proved that her medical skills were really terrible. Not only that, Bailey Hongzhuang refused him so decisively and did not give him any leeway, which also proved that Bailey Hongzhuang was loyal. If such a woman could become his woman, she would definitely not betray him. In the past, he had never taken the women around him seriously. On the one hand, it was because these women fell into his hands too easily. He was not a stupid person. Naturally, he could see that everyone was just doing it for their own interests. However, for the first time, Bailey Hongzhuang made him feel so different, so he was willing to spend more time and energy on Bailey Hongzhuang. During this period of time, he had been looking for an opportunity to get close to Bailey Hongzhuang, but the latter was in the limelight. With Di Beichen by her side, he could not find a suitable opportunity. He did not expect to see Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen separated today. He felt that this was a good opportunity, so he naturally followed. He wanted to strike up a conversation with Bailey Hongzhuang, but he did not expect to make such a scene. Duan Huali, I have made it very clear that this Yunling fruit is what my sister needs. So it is absolutely impossible to let it go. If you must stand up for this woman, then we can only be enemies. Chu Yunyao's eyes gradually sharpened. You have to think about it carefully. This Yunling fruit requires a lot of points. Do you want to spend so much for this outer disciple? You don't have to worry about the points. Now in the entire Penglai Palace, there are not many people who have more points than her. What do you mean? Chu Yunyao frowned. For a moment, she could not understand the meaning of Duan Huali's words. It seems that you don't know that she is Bailey Hongzhuang who made the healing medicine. Duan Huali said slowly. As Duan Huali's voice fell, Chu Yunyao couldn't help but stare at Bailey Hongzhuang. Her gaze changed and there was a bit of astonishment and surprise. She didn't expect that the young woman in front of her was the rumored Bailey Hongzhuang. She had been in retreat before, so she didn't see Bailey Hongzhuang in person. At this moment, she had just returned from the experiential learning. She didn't expect that the person in front of her was Bailey Hongzhuang. However, now that she thought about the comments everyone had said, she was really as beautiful as a fairy with a moving temperament. It was just that she was a little younger than she thought. Not only that, they are not the outer disciples in your words. Today, the hall master has made an exception and promoted them to inner disciples. Duan Huali continued. Although Bailey Hongzhuang's ability could be said to be at the bottom of the inner disciples, everyone knew very well that Bailey Hongzhuang had a promising future in Penglai Palace. Chapter 3698. I was wondering why Duan Huali suddenly changed his temperament this time. It turns out that this woman is extraordinary, Chu Yunyao said meaningfully, but her eyes looking at Bailey Hongzhuang became deeper and deeper, and there was a hint of resentment. Bailey Hongzhuang, let me tell you, in this Penglai Palace, if you rely on your own strength, you still have a chance to live well, but if you want to rely on a man just by relying on a face, sooner or later you will end up being abandoned. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved slightly. You can rest assured, I will definitely not end up like that. But looking at the way you say this, it seems like you are speaking from the bottom of your heart. Chu Yunyao's expression was stagnant, and her whole body was stiff for a moment. Then she glared at Bailey Hongzhuang with hatred, but she didn't say anything. Duan Huali, this Yunling fruit was taken by my sister, Chu Yunshang. Now you dare to treat my sister like this, you have to deal with the consequences yourself. As soon as her voice fell, Chu Yunyao didn't say anything more and left angrily. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but look at each other. She was just unhappy with Chu Yunyao's statement, so she refuted it, but she didn't expect Chu Yunyao's painful expression. It seemed that she had inadvertently told the truth. She finally left. Shangguan Yingying breathed a sigh of relief. She was worried that Chu Yunyao had been unwilling to let go. This matter was a bit difficult. She didn't expect that after Duan Huali reported the identity of Bailey Hongzhuang, she would leave so sensibly. Bailey Hongzhuang patted Shangguan Yingying on the shoulder and said, "It's okay. We are right in this matter. Even if she doesn't want to leave, she won't get anything good." She never had the habit of giving her things to others, let alone when they were in the right. After seeing that Chu Yunyao had finally left, Duan Huali's slightly gloomy face also became better. He turned around and smiled at Bailey Hongzhuang, saying, "Junior sister Bailey, no one will snatch this Yunling fruit from you anymore." Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded her head and said, "Thank you, senior brother Duan." Although she hated Duan Huali very much, now was not the time to shed all pretense of cordiality. She did not want to cause many twists and turns when she left Penglai Palace. With that, Bailey Hongzhuang pulled Shangguan Yingying away, but Duan Huali quickly followed. "Junior sister Bailey, we haven't seen each other in a long time. Why are you in such a hurry to leave? Everyone is busy with cultivation on weekdays. I don't think senior brother Duan is such a free person. It's better not to waste time." Duan Huali smiled faintly. "If I want to spend time on others, it's naturally a waste. However, I don't feel that it's a waste to spend time on junior sister Bailey. On the contrary, I think it's a kind of enjoyment." The low voice was full of ambiguity. Just by opening his mouth, Duan Huali had already shown his purpose incisively and vividly. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned slightly, but her face was very cold. "I feel the opposite of senior brother Duan." Her merciless words caused Duan Huali's expression to turn awkward. However, he quickly recovered and said, "Junior sister Bailey, I don't think I have offended you. Why do you have such an expression when you see me? Aren't you being too unreasonable?" Chapter 3699. Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude was very firm, as if talking to Duan Huali was a test of her patience. She had never liked this kind of person who stuck to her like a dog's skin plaster, let alone an arrogant and stubborn guy like Duan Huali. It's too early to make a conclusion about whether there is fate or not. Duan Huali did not care about Bailey Hongzhuang's rejection. On the contrary, he seemed to have guessed that Bailey Hongzhuang would have such an expression. It didn't matter what she said. Looking at Duan Huali like this, Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but exclaim. In terms of shamelessness, Duan Huali was really at the peak. After Bailey Hongzhuang paid the points, she put the Yunling fruit into her Qingkuan bag. No matter what, it was a great harvest for her to be able to get the Yunling fruit today. Although Duan Huali's appearance was an eyesore, as long as he didn't exist, it was fine. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang had been unwilling to pay attention to him, after leaving a few cold words and leaving, Duan Huali looked at her departing back and a smile slowly appeared on his lips. "Bailey Hongzhuang, you will be my woman sooner or later." However, Duan Huali did not notice that not far behind him, Chu Yunyao's gaze was on him. After hearing Duan Huali's words that were like an oath, Chu Yunyao's hands could not help but clench into fists. "Duan Huali, that woman's attitude towards you is so cold, but you still shamelessly follow her. It's really surprising." Her dark pupils flashed with a cold and ruthless light. "That woman is so different to you? Hongzhuang, do you think that Chu Yunyao will come looking for trouble with us?" Shangguan Yingying's eyes revealed a trace of worry. "If only I had found the Yunling fruit earlier, then I wouldn't have gotten into such trouble for no reason." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and reached out to hold Shangguan Yingying's arm as they walked briskly. Ying, your speed is already fast enough. At least you got the Yunling fruit before Chu Yunyao. I really have to thank you. If you didn't get the Yunling fruit, I don't know when you would be able to find such a treasure again. As for what Chu Yunyao's plan is, it's not something we can control. She can do whatever she wants. Anyway, we have always been in trouble. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was indifferent. If she was the one who found the cloud spirit fruit first, the situation wouldn't have changed. Since it was destined to be like this, she was not a person who was afraid of trouble. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Shangguan Yingying's face looked better. Then I'm relieved. I always felt guilty in my heart. You did all this for me. What's there to be sorry about? Hongzhuang, you've been helping me ever since we arrived at Penglai Island. I know you value our friendship, but I still feel guilty about it. Moreover, my recklessness sometimes causes me trouble. I'll change for the better in the future. Even if I can't help you, at least I can't cause trouble. Shangguan Yingying looked serious and her words came from the bottom of her heart. Yingying, you are treating me as an outsider. Bailey Hongzhuang said. Chapter 3700. Seeing that Shangguan Yingying was so sincere, the smile on Bailey Hongzhuang's lips became softer, but she did not say anything more. Because she knew that Shangguan Yingying had already made a decision in her heart, and no matter what she said, it would not change anything. Originally, this situation was not very obvious, but after she gave the fiery fruits to Shangguan Yingying and Wen Xiren, the two of them had some changes in their mood. Since then, they had become inner hall disciples because she had handed over the prescription of the healing medicine, which undoubtedly magnified this problem. Both she and Di Beichen felt this, but Di Beichen had already told her that Wen and Xiren would adjust themselves, so there was no need to worry. Moreover, this was a kind of motivation for them. Whether it was Wen Xiren or Shangguan Yingying, they were never easily discouraged. On the contrary, the more they fought, the braver they became. This was their nature. By the way, Hongzhuang, I always felt that the atmosphere between Chu Yunyao and Duan Huali just now was a little unusual, don't you think so? Bailey Hongzhuang thought about it and nodded. It is indeed a little strange that Chu Yunyao seems to be particularly concerned about Duan Huali's opinion, and vaguely seems to be unyielding. She never forgot Chu Yunyao's resentful gaze when she left. From a woman's intuition, she felt that Chu Yunyao did not hate her because of the cloud spirit fruit, but because of Duan Huali? That's right, that's what I think. Shangguan Yingying nodded, but that Duan Huali has always liked to provoke women, so it's normal for him to have some emotional debt. But looking at the situation, it should be that there is a king between Duan Huali and Chu Yunshang. I'm not sure why Chu Yunyao is like this. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. Why do you care so much? What happened between them has nothing to do with us. Even if there is a conflict, it won't involve us. That's true. Shangguan Yingying smiled faintly. Now that we have the cloudy spiritual fruit, Hongzhuang, I think you should quickly consume it. Otherwise, I'm afraid it will cause more trouble. Shangguan Yingying's expression was complicated. She always felt that Chu Yunyao was not someone who was easy to deal with. The reason why Chu Yunyao left just now had a lot to do with Duan Huali. Now that Duan Huali was no longer here, if Chu Yunyao came looking for trouble again, it would not be a good thing. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. All right, I'll go into seclusion after we return. Once I'm done, we'll set off for the Devil Training Tower. Yes. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Bailey Hongzhuang returned to their residence, Di Beichen and Di Beichen had yet to return. Bailey Hongzhuang took the lead and began her closed-door cultivation. To the current them, time was undoubtedly very precious. The sooner she finished her seclusion, the sooner they could head to the Devil Training Tower. Tiangang sect. Ever since Bailey Hongzhuang and the others left, Si Tian and the others had been worried. They did not know how Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were doing. Lan Yunxiao and Yu Linfeng had always planned to head to Penglai Island to find traces of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. However, Lan Yunxiao had just taken over the Lan family and still had many things to deal with. It would not be easy for him to leave for a while. Chapter 3701. At the same time, they also contacted the sect master of the Cloud Sword sect. Although they knew that the sect master of the Cloud Sword sect had a fearless personality, they were still shocked that he would so easily allow Wen Xiren and Lan Bingyun to head to that place with an uncertain future. However, after they found the Cloud Sword sect's sect master and chatted for a while, they noticed that the Cloud Sword sect's sect master's courage was truly shocking. In the sect master of the Cloud Sword sect, this was a training that belonged to Wen Xiren and the rest. Everyone's excessive worry would instead shackle their development. Since Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest had decided to leave quietly, they must have already made their decision. As their elders, the best method was to respect their decision. This way of thinking was undoubtedly different from Lan Yunxiao and the rest. However, after careful consideration, they understood that the sect master of the Cloud Sword sect's words were reasonable. If they are going out to train, I can be more at ease. However, Di Beichen's condition is so terrible. If anything happens to him, Hongzhuang definitely won't be able to accept it. This is what I'm most worried about. Mu Lingbing's eyes were filled with worry. Her Hongzhuang had suffered too much since she was young. Now that everything had gotten better with great difficulty, Di Beichen had fallen into danger. She was a sentimental person and naturally understood how deep Bailey Hongzhuang's feelings were. If something happened to Di Beichen, she was really worried that Bailey Hongzhuang wouldn't be able to live on. You don't have to worry too much for now. Didn't you say that they have at least a year? At least, there won't be any problems during this year. Lan Yunxiao held Mu Lingbing's shoulders and gently comforted her. A year's time is neither too long nor too short. They will need several months to reach Penglai Island. If they do not succeed in reaching Penglai Island, they will be finished. Mu Lingbing turned to look at Lan Yunxiao, her eyes filled with tears. Yunxiao, what do you think our Hongzhuang did wrong? Why is the heavens so unfair to her? 20 years ago, she always thought that Hongzhuang was fortunate to be her daughter. However, after various things happened, not only did Bailey Hongzhuang not enjoy it, she was riddled with scars and shouldered countless hardships at a young age. She really didn't understand why so many things had to be shouldered by Bailey Hongzhuang alone. Binger, don't think of this situation in a bad way. Perhaps Hongzhuang and the rest are going smoothly. Penglai Island is Penglai Island. There's something that we don't have. Hongzhuang will be cured. I believe that the heavens is fair. They definitely won't treat Hongzhuang. 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 Hong Tian is. Really? Will it really be like this? Mu Lingbing held Lan Yunxiao's hand, her eyes filled with hope. Lan Yunxiao nodded firmly. Yes, it definitely will. Situ Yan's mood was also very complicated. One was his biological granddaughter, and the other was the grandson he had raised since he was young. Originally, he was the happiest about their union, but he didn't expect that there would be such twists and turns, making him abnormally worried. Situ, are you thinking about Beichen and the rest again? Chapter 3702. Situ Yan was a person who did not like to express his feelings. He had always buried everything in his heart. Although Mu Jins had not been with Situ Yan for many years, she was very familiar with his temperament. Every time Situ Yan looked in the direction of Di Beichen's palace, she knew that Situ Yan was worried and thinking about him. Di Beichen's illness had caused everyone's hearts to be in suspense. However, they were also very clear that even if they went to Penglai Palace, they would not be of much help. If they had the herbs, Di Beichen and the rest would definitely think of ways to get their hands on them. If they did not have the herbs, then even if they went, it would be of no use. Hearing this, Situ Yan turned to look at Mu Jins behind him and said lightly, they have already left for several months. After such a long time, I wonder how they are doing now. Whether it is Beichen or Hongzhuang, they are the most outstanding youths I have ever seen. I believe that they will succeed. Mu Jins had always been very worried in her heart. However, she always believed that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were people with extraordinary talent. Perhaps these things would be difficult for others, but for Bailey Hongzhuang and Beichen it was possible. Situ Yan nodded. I have always watched Beichen grow up. I am very clear about his abilities. It is because of this that I did not let everyone go. I believe that they will be able to solve this problem. Mu Jin smiled faintly. Although that is the case, don't you still think about it every day? Isn't everyone the same? That's true. Just as Mu Jins and Sitiyen were discussing this matter, news suddenly came from outside. Sect Master, a cultivator who claimed to be from Penglai Island, left a letter and a Qiankuan bag at the foot of the mountain before leaving. The great elder hurriedly handed the letter to Sitiyen. Ever since the young sect master left, everyone had been paying close attention to Penglai Island. Now that there was a letter from Penglai Island, he naturally thought of the young sect master. Perhaps the young sect master had asked someone to send it back. Hearing this news, Si Tu-yen and Mu Jin-se were stunned. This was beyond their expectations. Situ, hurry up and open it. Is there any news about Hong Zhuang and the others? Situ-yen nodded and quickly opened the letter. After reading the contents of the letter, his hands couldn't help but tremble. It's really from Beichen. As soon as these words came out, Mu Jin-se's eyes lit up. She was pleasantly surprised. What did the letter say? The letter says that they have successfully found the medicinal ingredients. Beichen's cursed body has been successfully transformed. They originally planned to return, but they were recruited by the Penglai Palace on the Penglai Island, so they temporarily stayed there to train. They will return in the future, so we don't have to worry. A smile gradually appeared on Si Tu-yan's face. The huge rock that had been pressing down on his heart was finally lifted at this moment. Mu Jin-se took the letter and carefully read through its contents. Her face also showed a gratified smile. I knew that they would be blessed by the heavens. Sure enough, they succeeded. Now everyone can breathe a sigh of relief. Chapter 3703. Sitiyan's kind and calm face revealed a happy smile. Looks like they are developing well in Penglai Island. We don't need to worry about them. Indeed, these children are all heaven's favored children. You guys might not even be able to compare to them. Mu Jins chuckled. After all, their cultivation talent is much better than yours. Sitiyen nodded. Although these words were belittling him, he wasn't angry. Beichen and the rest are indeed much more outstanding than us. Who knows, they might even be able to make a name for themselves in Penglai Island. They have really grown up. Situyan's deep voice was filled with relief. Although Di Beichen had shown extraordinary maturity early on, in Situyan's heart, he was still that child who had always worked hard by his side. It was only now that he realized that Di Beichen had grown up and could truly take charge of things on his own. Lingbing and the rest have always been worried about Hong Zhuang. We should quickly tell them this news. Mu Jins hurriedly said. During this period of time, she knew that Mu Lingbing had always been filled with guilt towards Bailey Hongzhuang. She thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would finally be able to live a happy life. Who would have thought that something like this would happen again? Speaking of which, the one who suffered the most was Mu Lingbing. That's right, we should make a trip over. I will send someone to inform Limitless Palace. Ever since there was a teleportation array, it was undoubtedly much more convenient to travel from Tiangang sect to the Lan family. In a short period of time, Situ Yen and Mu Jins arrived at the Lan family. The Lan family's disciples all recognized Situ Yen and Mu Jins and respectfully welcomed them in. Father, mother, why are you free to come today? Mu Lingbing saw that Situ Yen and Mu Jins had suddenly come. While she was happy, she was also surprised. They had always maintained contact with each other, but most of the time, it was Mu Jins who came to visit her. Now that even Situ Yen had come, could it be that something had happened? Lingbing, I'm here to tell you a piece of good news. Mu Jins went straight to the point. Good news? Mu Lingbing raised a brow. What good news? Now, her life in the Lan family was very comfortable. The only things she cared about in her heart were Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. Other news didn't mean much to her. We received a letter from Hongzhuang and the rest today. Mu Lingbing and Lan Yunxiao, who had just arrived, couldn't help but be startled. They looked at Mu Jins in astonishment, wondering if they had misheard. Mother, what did you say? You said you received a letter from Hong Zhuang? Mu Lingbing's gaze was fixed on Mu Jinsei, worried that she had misheard. Mu Jinsei nodded, that's right. We suddenly received a letter from them today, so we immediately came to tell you the news. Mu Lingbing and Lan Yunxiao immediately came forward, their faces filled with surprise and worry. What did the letter say? They said they've successfully found the medicinal ingredients they needed. Beichen's cursed body has been removed, so there's no need to worry about this problem in the future. Mu Jin smiled. Hearing this, Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing couldn't help but sigh in relief. A genuine smile finally appeared on their faces. Chapter 3704. They've been recruited by the largest faction on Penglai Island, so they've decided to stay there for a while. They've specially sent a letter back to tell us not to worry. Situ Yen slowly spoke and handed the letter to Lan Yunxiao. It looks like they're doing well on Penglai Island. Although they already knew the contents of the letter, Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing couldn't help but read every word again before revealing a relieved smile. Thank the heavens and earth that Beichen is safe and sound. Mu Lingbing's eyes were filled with tears of joy. She had been waiting for news with apprehension, but now she could finally relax. No one knew how tormented her heart had been during this period of time. It wasn't easy for her to be reunited with her daughter, so she didn't want to lose her again. Fortunately, the heavens finally opened their eyes and didn't take away Hong Zhuang's happiness. Oh right, Situ. I remember there's a Qingkuan pouch? Mu Jin suddenly asked. They'd been so focused on the letter that they'd forgotten about the pouch. Only now did they remember. I almost forgot about it if you didn't mention it. Situ Yen was startled and immediately took out the Qingkuan pouch. This Qingkuan pouch was sent along with the letter. I wonder what's inside. As the Qingkuan pouch was opened, the four's eyes were filled with curiosity. They didn't know what Bailey Hongzhuang's group had brought back. However, when they clearly saw the contents of the Qingkuan bag, the four of them could not help but be stunned. They saw that the Qingkuan bag was filled with pieces of sparkling crystal stones, and they even contained dense yuan power ripples. What's this? Mu Lingbing curiously looked at the crystals in front of her. Although she didn't know what they were, she could tell that they weren't simple. They're spirit stones. Situ Yen immediately recognized the spirit stone. This spirit stone is rich in heaven and earth elemental energy. If cultivators use this spirit stone to cultivate, it can greatly increase their cultivation speed. Outside of our island, spirit stones are almost invisible. However, spirit stones are a necessity for everyone on Penglai Island to cultivate. It is precisely because of these spirit stones that many talented cultivators insist on staying on Penglai Island. However, it is not easy to obtain these spirit stones. Although Si Tuyen had never been to Penglai Island, he had a certain understanding of the spirit stones. This is a spirit stone? Lan Yunxiao held the spirit stone in his hand. He had heard of it before but had never seen it before. Si Tuyen nodded. That's right. Since it's not easy to obtain spirit stones, how could they send back so many spirit stones? Mu Lingbing's face was full of shock. Even though she had only taken a casual glance, she knew that this was a shocking number. It seems that they did not lie to us. They are really doing well on Penglai Island. Otherwise, they would not have given us so many cultivation resources. Mu Jinsei's lips curled into a smile. Originally, she was a little worried that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had said those words to make them feel more at ease. But now it seemed that they really could be at ease. Look, there's a piece of paper here. Mu Lingbing's sharp eyes saw that there was a piece of paper in the Qingkuan pouch, and immediately took it out. Looking at it, they saw that there were only simple words written on it. Chapter 3705. Si Tuyen and the rest's expressions changed when they read the contents of the paper. Penglai Island was a place they'd admired for a long time but had never set foot in. Now they were going to explore it. It looks like these little fellows are already used to their days on Penglai Island. They actually hope that we can go with them. Sitiyen chuckled, his calm face filled with relief and gratification. Lan Yunxiao nodded with a smile. Since Penglai Island can attract so many experts, it must be attractive enough. Bei Chen and the rest have astonishing talent in cultivation, so that's the most suitable place for them to develop. That's good too. Since that place is suitable for them to cultivate, let them properly gain experience. When they're young, they should do what they want to do. Mu Lingbing's eyes were bright and resplendent. To her, as long as she knew that Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest were safe and sound, it was enough. As for what they wanted to do in the future, that was up to them. Originally, with your cultivation talent, you would have been heaven's favored children. But that damned Yu Siqing delayed you for so many years. Mu Jin's eyes were filled with malice. Even though Yu Siqing had already been punished, she couldn't help but be angry whenever she thought of her. It could only be said that she didn't have a pair of sharp eyes back then. She actually treated this vicious woman as a true friend, which led to the tragedy of her daughter and granddaughter. Back then, Lan Yunxiao was a genius that stunned everyone. He was able to achieve such results at such a young age and wasn't any weaker than Di Beichen. Unfortunately, when he was in the limelight, he was persecuted by Yu Siqing. Many years of torment and delay caused his body to deteriorate greatly. Fortunately, Bailey Hongzhuang's medical skills were exquisite and managed to adjust Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing's bodies back to normal. However, after being delayed for so many years, they would have to spend even more time on cultivation. If this hadn't happened, Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing wouldn't have achieved such results. Hearing the regret and hatred in Mu Jin's voice, Mu Lingbing couldn't help but hold her hand. Mother, the rain has passed and the sky is clear. At worst, we can just start over again. It is indeed a pity that we have wasted some time, but we will have more time in the future. That may be the case, but the younger one is, the more room for improvement there is. Mu Jinsei sighed. How could she not understand that Mu Lingbing was trying to console her? But regret was of no use. In the past, we only wanted to increase our strength, but after going through so many things, I feel that it's most important for us to stay together. Mu Lingbing's eyes were calm and her smile was sweet. In the past, she always had many things she wanted to do. Now, she just wanted her loved ones to be safe and sound. Being able to stay with her family was her greatest wish. Lan Yunxiao looked at Mu Lingbing affectionately. His thoughts were the same as Mu Lingbing's. Nothing was more important than being with his family. Seeing Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing like this, Mu Jin smiled comfortably. I didn't expect you two children to be even more insightful than me. But you're right. With your current situation, you already have many things you should have. Chapter 3706. Spirit stones are very helpful for cultivators to raise their cultivation. With these spirit stones, you'll be able to increase your cultivation faster. Situyen looked at Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing. Both of their talents were excellent, but they had been delayed. However, after so many years of suppression, once it erupted, the speed was extremely fast. Most importantly, he discovered that Lan Yunxiao and Lan Yunqi's cultivation speed was extremely fast, far surpassing his expectations. If they continued to develop like this, he believed that the two would be able to obtain the attention of the past again. Lan Yunxiao nodded with a smile. There are many spirit stones here. Let's divide them. Bing and I will take Limitless Palace's share. Now that the four major forces had already joined forces, they were bound together for good or ill. Limitless Palace had helped them a lot to reach this point. Lan Yunxiao was also grateful to Yu Linfeng. On one hand, it was because Yu Linfeng had taken care of Bailey Hongzhuang. On the other hand, it was because of Yu Linfeng's generosity and trust. If he hadn't cultivated on Yu Linfeng's stairway to heaven, his cultivation speed would have been extremely slow. That's right. Then you two should make a trip there and tell them the good news. Tian nodded. During this period of time, they've been worried about Hongzhuang just as much as we have. That's right. I'm sure they'll be very happy after hearing the news. When Mu Lingbing told the news to Yu Linfeng and Yu Linfeng, they were first stunned before revealing joyful smiles. They actually sent a letter back? Nangong Wu's eyes flickered with disbelief. Mu Lingbing nodded. That's right. When we first received the letter, we couldn't help but be astonished. However, the handwriting is indeed Beichen's. As long as we know they're safe and sound, we can be at ease. Yu Linfeng smiled comfortably. It seems like the heavens aren't unkind to them. They've successfully found the herbs and Beichen's constitution has successfully changed. Now we don't have to worry anymore. That's right. Lan Yunxiao sighed. The younger generation's performance has always been outstanding. Perhaps we won't be so successful even if we go there. Yu Linfeng chuckled and nodded. I agree with what you said. These young people are really amazing. These spirit stones were sent back by Hongzhuang and the others. This is yours. Lan Yunxiao handed the Qianquan pouch to Yu Linfeng. Spirit stones? Yu Linfeng was slightly taken aback. They actually brought spirit stones back? They must be living a good life on Penglai Island. That's why they have the time to care about us. Mu Lingbing smiled. They also said that they hope we can go to Penglai Island together in the future. I see. Yu Linfeng smiled and said, this spirit stone is an excellent cultivation resource for cultivators. It can double the results with half the effort. Nangong Wu's eyes flickered with excitement. Hongzhuang is so outstanding. Whether it's her alchemy or medical skills, they've reached the pinnacle. With her around, I think it won't be a problem to get the spirit stones. It was precisely because she knew Bailey Hongzhuang had such abilities that she wasn't too worried. After all, if they were just cultivators, they might encounter a lot of trouble. However, if they were doctors or alchemists, most people wouldn't look for trouble. Chapter 3707. When Di Beichen and when Ziren returned, they noticed that Bailey Hongzhuang seemed to be cultivating in her room. However, Shangguan Yingying was nowhere to be seen. Hongzhuang is cultivating, where has Yingying run off to? When Ziren's eyes flashed with confusion. Previously, Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying had been together. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang had returned, Shangguan Yingying should have returned as well. Why was she nowhere to be seen? She should be nearby. Perhaps she's strolling around somewhere else? Di Beichen slowly said. When Ziren spread his hands, let's wait for a while. She should be back soon. However, as night gradually fell, they still had not seen Shangguan Yingying's figure. The worry in their hearts grew even more intense. Something's not right. Yingying couldn't possibly have left for so long. When Ziren furrowed his brows and his expression turned serious. He had been with Shangguan Yingying for so long and understood her personality very well. She couldn't possibly have left for so long without any instructions. Di Beichen also had a bad premonition in his heart. I'm afraid that something has happened. Something has happened? Ziren was shocked. His dark eyes suddenly focused and his usually gentle face revealed a rare look of anxiety and worry. We've only just arrived at the inner palace today. What could have happened to her here? Indeed, our only enemy in the inner palace is Duan Huali. However, Duan Huali only wants to attack the two of us. He shouldn't have done anything to Yingying. Di Beichen's eyes darkened. This situation had exceeded their expectations. Damn it, it's been 4 to 6 hours since this afternoon. If something has happened, then Yingying, Once he thought of a certain possibility, Ziren's eyes instantly turned red. He clenched his fists tightly. If something had happened to Yingying, he didn't dare to think of the consequences. Ziren, calm down first. Di Beichen put his big hand on Ziren's shoulder. We must calmly think about who did this. Only when we know this can we take action. When Ziren, who was about to lose his mind, gradually calmed down after hearing Di Beichen's words. However, his eyes were still red. Although we have many enemies in Penglai Palace, Since Hong Zhuang handed over the prescription of the healing medicine, most people no longer dare to be our enemy. In the inner palace, except for Duan, there is no one who is our opponent. But Duan Huali, there. No one else in the inner palace. There to be no other enemy to be found. To be our opponent. But Duan Huns, in the inner palace has no other. Even if the other party is really looking for trouble, I think they'll be looking for trouble with us. It's indeed strange that they're targeting Yingying. Di Beichen's deep eyes were full of thoughts. Hong Zhuang is in seclusion now. We can't forcibly interrupt her. Otherwise it will be bad if it backfires. When Xiren clutched his hair tightly with both hands. I can't think of a single possibility. If I had known earlier, I would have accompanied Yingying in the afternoon. That way Yingying would have been fine. Beichen, what kind of danger do you think Yingying will be in? Xiren raised his eyes and looked at Di Beichen. His eyes were full of nervousness. The hope was like a candle flame, as if it would be extinguished with a slight blow. 4 to 6 hours. If the other party really wanted Shangguan Yingying's life, then she would have disappeared from this world. Chapter 3708. Hong Zhuang was with Yingying in the afternoon. Since Hong Zhuang can go into seclusion without worry, it means that nothing happened. Maybe Yingying just went out and hasn't returned yet. Di Beichen comforted Xiren, but when he saw Xiren's bloodshot eyes, he knew that his comforting words were useless. In fact, he also understood Xiren's feelings. If something happened to Hong Zhuang, he probably wouldn't be any better than when Xiren. Let's ask the cultivators living nearby first. Maybe they know something. Di Beichen said. Xiren's eyes lit up and he quickly nodded. Yes, maybe someone saw her. In the next second, Di Beichen and Xiren split up. As long as someone saw the direction Shangguan Yingying left, they might be able to find some clues. Ao Lingxiao opened the door and saw Di Beichen and Xiren anxiously asking the cultivators around. Seeing this, he couldn't help but wonder, what are you doing? Seeing Ao Lingxiao, Di Beichen quickly asked, Ao Lingxiao, did you see Yingying in the afternoon? They asked many people around, but no one seemed to have seen her. They couldn't get any results. They had expected this. After all, most cultivators were busy cultivating in their houses. There weren't many people who could pay attention to the situation outside. Ao Lingxiao nodded and said matter-of-factly, I saw her. As soon as these words came out, when Xiren suddenly rushed in front of Ao Lingxiao and tightly pulled on Ao Lingxiao's clothes, then where did she go? Seeing Xiren like this, Ao Lingxiao couldn't help but be stunned. He seemed to be dumbfounded and said, What's wrong with you guys? Yingying is missing. We can't find any trace of her. Di Beichen explained. However, Xiren didn't care about all this. He pulled Ao Lingxiao's collar and asked, Tell me, where did Yingying go? When I came out earlier, I happened to see Shangguan Yingying. I saw her running outside in a hurry, so I asked her. She said she was going to look for you. Ao Lingxiao frowned. I didn't think too much about it at that time. I just thought that she was looking for you for something urgent, so I went back to the house. Looking for us. Xiren was slightly taken aback. But we didn't see her. You said that Yingying went to look for us in a hurry? Di Beichen immediately noticed the main point and asked again. Ao Lingxiao nodded. That's right. She looked quite anxious at that time. I wanted to ask her a few more questions, but she completely ignored me and ran away. Something's not right. Di Beichen's eyes darkened. Hong Zhuang is currently in closed-door cultivation and nothing has happened. Logically speaking, Yingying wouldn't rush to find us. But if she's in such a hurry, she must have been deceived. Xiren's eyes changed. He seemed to understand everything. It seems that the other party used us as bait to lure Yingying out. But who is this person? Di Beichen frowned. He couldn't think of a possible candidate. Ao Lingxiao also understood that this matter was unusual. Although Shangguan Yingying usually liked to find trouble with him, He also knew that Shangguan Yingying didn't have any ill intentions. Chapter 3709. Aoling Xiao, did you see who was looking for Yingying? When Xiren quickly asked. As long as they knew who did it, they would be able to find a breakthrough. Naturally, they would be able to find out who lured Shangguan Yingying away. Aoling Xiao frowned and recalled the specific situation at the time. He said, I didn't care too much at the time. I just looked at him. I only remembered that it was a man, but I didn't see him clearly. If he didn't know Shangguan Yingying, he wouldn't have paid attention at all. Who did you offend in Penglai Palace? As long as you list these people one by one, you will be able to guess. This kind of thing must be done by an enemy. Listening to Aoling Xiao's words, Di Beichun and Xiren looked at each other. There was a hint of helplessness in their anxious expressions. It's precisely because we thought of all the enemies but still couldn't figure out who it was. Aoling Xiao was stunned. Ah, you don't know who it is? If we knew who it was, we wouldn't be running around like headless flies. Xiren's face was extremely ugly. Countless thoughts flashed through his mind. While he was thinking about who the other party might be, he couldn't help but think about the various situations that might have happened to Shangguan Yingying. He only felt that he was completely confused and couldn't think calmly at all. Di Beichun was relatively calm. The other party used me and Xiren to lure Yingying out. This means that the other party didn't intend to attack me and Xiren. If this conspiracy wasn't directed at Yingying, then it was directed at Hongzhuang and Yingying. Since we came to Penglai Palace, the four of us have always acted together. Even if we provoked an enemy, it was the four of us who provoked them together. So I can't figure out who would choose to attack Yingying. Hearing this, Aoling Xiao also understood. Indeed, the four of you have always acted together. It is indeed strange that only Shangguan Yingying is missing. What about Bailey Hongzhuang? Maybe she knows something. Hongzhuang is currently in closed-door cultivation. We can't rashly disturb her before she comes out. Otherwise, if any accident happens, the consequences will be very serious. Indeed. Aoling Xiao nodded. But you don't have any clues now. How are you going to find Shangguan Yingying? Di Beichun's expression was grave and complicated. There's nothing we can do at the moment. We can only ask around if anyone has seen Yingying. As long as someone sees it, we'll be able to identify the opponent. Time was of the essence. No one knew what kind of situation Yingying was in. If they were late, no one knew what would happen. Aoling Xiao, can you help us ask around? Di Beichun rarely asked others for help, but in this situation, it was obviously impossible to rely on just the few of them. No problem. Aoling Xiao nodded without hesitation. Let's split up and search for clues. I believe someone will notice. Thank you. Di Beichun looked deeply at Aoling Xiao. He knew that Aoling Xiao usually acted alone and wouldn't intervene in this kind of thing. Chapter 3710. Xiren, in my opinion, in this situation we need to find some helpers. Otherwise, just the three of us won't be enough. Di Beichun said. You first ask the people around here. I will go find senior brother Ran and the others to help us look. Okay, Beichun, you must be quick. Xiren's voice had become hoarse at some point. His bright eyes were dim and depressed, like a person on the verge of death. This was the first time Di Beichun had seen Xiren like this. Shangguan Yingying had been with Xiren since they were young. Di Beichun was very clear about their previous feelings. If something really happened to Shangguan Yingying, what would Xiren look like? Di Beichun didn't dare to think about it. Di Beichun clenched his fists under his sleeves. No matter who the other party was, this action had really touched their reverse scale. When Ren Ziheng and the others heard the news of Shangguan Yingying's disappearance, everyone's faces were filled with shock. Yingying is missing? Ren Zimei's face was full of disbelief. This afternoon, Di Beichen and Shangguan Yingying had specially come to say goodbye to them. Who would have thought that Shangguan Yingying would mysteriously disappear at this time? The other party actually used you to lure Shangguan Yingying away instead of taking the initiative to find trouble. This situation is a bit complicated. Ren Ziheng frowned. At this time he was very calm. It seems that this matter is not easy to handle. The other party obviously used their brains, which also proves that they are serious. As soon as he said this, Di Beichen and the others understood what he meant. Today, they had just received special permission from the palace master to become inner hall disciples. But on this day, something happened to Shangguan Yingying. If the other party directly came to find trouble, it would undoubtedly attract everyone's attention. It would also arouse the dissatisfaction of the palace master. Therefore, the other party deliberately lured Shangguan Yingying away. In this way, if Shangguan Yingying died outside, there would be no evidence, and no one would be able to associate her with anyone else. For them to go through so much trouble to set up such a trap, it was enough to see that the other party did not want to scare them. In that case, junior sister Shangguan is really in danger. Chu Jinfeng's face darkened. Junior sister Bailey and the others are now famous in the Penglai Palace. The other party actually chose to make a move at this time. They are really bold. Do you think it could be Duan Huali? Di Beichen shook his head. It can't be Duan Huali. If he wanted to target someone, he would target me and Xiren. It's impossible for him to target Yingying. Is he trying to use Yingying to lure you out? No, if he wanted to lure us out, he would have already sent someone to inform us. However, it has been so long and we haven't received any news at all. If that's the case, things are complicated. Ren Ziheng's face also showed a difficult expression. However, I can be sure of one thing. This time it must be an inner hall disciple. An outer hall disciple definitely doesn't have such courage. Think carefully. Did you offend any inner hall disciple? Chapter 37:11. That's strange. Then who else would make a move against you? When Xiren lowered his head, and his eyes flickered with dense contemplation, he seemed to be unable to figure out exactly where this problem came from. Chu Jinfeng frowned and said, "Since we don't have any clues now, let's ask around to see if anyone else noticed that junior sister Shangguan went in that direction. After all, every second we delay will put junior sister Shangguan in more danger." In the next second, everyone didn't delay any longer and immediately scattered to ask around. Ren Ziheng and the others immediately called out the cultivators who had a good relationship with them to help them find Shangguan Yingying's traces. When everyone knew that they were helping Di Beichen and the others, they were a little surprised, but they were still very happy. After all, the status of Di Beichen and the others was completely different from before. If they could build a good relationship with Bailey Hongzhuang, it would also be beneficial for them. If they didn't have enough points, they might be able to buy some healing medicine from Bailey Hongzhuang. Although the palace master said that the healing medicine could be exchanged with points in the future, he didn't forbid Bailey Hongzhuang from making it. For everyone, it was no different from getting it through 2 channels. Originally, everyone was still thinking about how to get closer to Bailey Hongzhuang. They didn't expect that the opportunity would come knocking on their door. For a time, the quiet inner hall became lively. In a short period of time, everyone already knew what had happened. Have you heard? Shangguan Yingying just became an inner hall disciple and disappeared. It's really unexpected. I don't know who did it, but they can't wait. Now many people are helping to look for her. I guess there's no point in looking for her now. If the other party wanted to take Shangguan Yingying's life, Shangguan Yingying would have already reported to the underworld after such a long time. When Xiren, who was anxiously looking for Shangguan Yingying, heard this sentence and his eyes turned even redder. He immediately rushed up and pulled the other person's collar. What did you say? I dare you to say that again. That person obviously did not expect when Xiren to do such a thing. Just as he was about to get angry, he saw when Xiren's eyes that were like a trapped beast. The despair and killing intent in his eyes could topple mountains and overturn seas. as if it could drown him in an instant. The man couldn't help but be stunned. Looking at Xiren like this, he was actually speechless. Di Baichen noticed the conflict between Xiren and the other party. He quickly rushed over and said, "I'm sorry, he's just too worried. This damned fellow actually said that Ying is dead." When Xiren said angrily, "It's just nonsense." Di Baichen hurriedly said, "Xiren, I believe that the other party is not trying to lure the snake out of its hole just to deal with Ying alone, so we still have hope." At this moment, Ren Ziheng rushed over and said, "We found the person who gave Shangguan Ying the news." As soon as he said this, Xiren and Di Baichen's eyes lit up. They quickly asked, "Where is that person? I just got the news from others. Let's go and take a look together." As he spoke, when Xiren had already rushed in the direction that Ren Ziheng had pointed out. Chapter 37:12. Soon Di Baichen and the others found Pan Yun. Pan Yun obviously did not expect that a group of cultivators would suddenly come looking for him, and could not help but be stunned. "Pan Yun, did you look for junior sister Shangguan in the afternoon?" Ren Ziheng recognized Pan Yun, so he took the initiative to ask. Hearing this, Pan Yun was still a little stunned and could not help but ask, "What are you doing? Since you went to look for junior sister Shangguan, she has gone missing. Now we are all looking for her." Ren Ziheng said, "Seeing that we have some friendship, you should tell us about this matter. Tell us quickly. What is your purpose of luring her out?" Xiren's eyes were fixed on Pan Yun. That terrifying gaze seemed to want to cut Pan Yun into pieces. Pan Yun wanted to refute, but after seeing Xiren and the other's stance, he swallowed the words he wanted to say. "Actually, I don't know anything. I just met someone outside today. He gave me some spirit stones and said that he was not a disciple of Penglai Palace and could not enter Penglai Palace. He asked me to help inform Shangguan Ying and Bailey Hongzhuang that Di Baichen and Xiren were in danger outside. I don't know what is going on, but that person looked very anxious, so I helped to pass on the message." Pan Yun's expression was a little innocent as he looked at Di Baichen and Xiren in confusion. "It seems that the two of you are fine." As soon as these words came out, Di Baichen and the others could not help but look at each other. They did not expect such a situation. "Pan Yun, are you telling the truth?" Ren Ziheng asked again. Pan Yun frowned slightly. "I have never had any interaction with them. It is not worthwhile to tell such a lie to deceive people." "Then did you see what the other party looked like?" Di Baichen asked. Pan Yun shook his head. The other party was wearing a cloak and his entire person was covered. I couldn't see clearly. Furthermore, the other party only wanted me to help pass on a message, and gave me a sufficient reward. I didn't care about those things at all. You haven't figured out anything yet. Why are you spreading such fake news? Xiren's eyes were extremely gloomy. He thought that he had finally found a breakthrough, but he did not expect the other party to be so secretive that they could not find any clues at all. Seeing Xiren start to question him, Pan Yun's face turned ugly. This kind of thing is just a coincidence. Who would think so much about it? Pan Yun's face turned cold. I only told you the details of this matter because of my relationship with Ren Ziheng. Don't go too far. Seeing that Pan Yun also started to get angry, Ren Ziheng hurriedly spoke out. Junior apprentice sister Shangguan went missing. Junior apprentice brother one is like this because he was too anxious. You mustn't be calculative with him. After all, junior apprentice sister Shangguan is the most important person to him. If something happened to the most important person to you, your attitude would not be much better. Hearing this, Pan Yun's face was still a little ugly, but in the end, he did not say anything. Pan Yun, help me think carefully. Is there any details that you can remember from the other party? We are really in a hurry now. Ren Ziheng's face was full of worry. They had been searching together for a long time. Currently, Pan Yun was the only clue. Chapter 37:13. Looking at Ren Ziheng's anxious look, Pan Yun sighed but still shook his head. I really didn't pay too much attention to the details. The other party was wearing a cloak. Obviously he didn't want others to recognize his identity. If he did it intentionally, how could I have seen it? Hearing this, Ren Ziheng also knew that Pan Yun was telling the truth, and said helplessly, "Then I'll have to bother you. Junior brother D, let's go." "All right." D Beichen nodded and pulled Wen Xiren out of the house. All the clues were cut off at this moment. As for the cultivator wearing a cloak that Pan Yun mentioned, no matter how much they asked around, they still couldn't get any information. An indescribable sense of despair and worry shrouded Xiren and D Beichen. After waiting for so long, there was still no news at all. The other party also didn't ask them to do anything. They were afraid that it was really a disaster. The sky gradually brightened. D Beichen and the rest searched for an entire night, and everyone was a little disappointed. Xiren seemed to have been possessed. He continued to search everywhere, unwilling to give up even a glimmer of hope. "Junior brother D, we've asked around everywhere we could, but there was no news at all. I'm afraid the situation is really bad." Ren Ziheng's voice was a little troubled. For the entire night, all his friends had helped to search, but there was no news at all. Although no one was willing to say the result, everyone was already well aware of it. D Beichen's face was very ugly. "I understand, senior brother Ran. Sorry to trouble you. We didn't do anything, and we also couldn't find junior sister Shangguan. The most important thing now is junior brother Wan. He doesn't look good." Ren Ziheng patted D Beichen's shoulder, shook his head and sighed. "Sigh," D Beichen nodded, his deep eyes flashing with a persistent light. "We'll continue to search. After all, if he's alive, we want to see him. If he's dead, we want to see his corpse. As long as there's a glimmer of hope, we won't give up. We will also search with you. I believe we will find some clues." When Xiren understood D Beichen and the others' persistence very well. If it were anyone else, they would not choose to give up at this time. No one would give up until the very last moment. Ren Zimei and Chu Jinfeng were also trying their best to find out more information. This matter is really strange. Junior sister Shangguan did not offend anyone in the inner palace. It doesn't make sense for the other party to quietly take her away. Junior sister Shangguan and the others have always moved together. If there is an opponent, it should be the opponent of the four of them. Do you think that the other party wants to defeat us one by one? The light in Chu Jinfeng's eyes suddenly changed as he said. Ren Zimei was stunned. She couldn't help but look at Chu Jinfeng. If the situation was really like this, then it would be a little terrifying. In the evening, the red clouds filled the sky. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly opened her eyes. Her pitch-black phoenix eyes flashed with a trace of joy. The effect of this spiritual cloud fruit is really good. My mental strength has improved a lot. During this period of time, the slow improvement of her mental strength had worried her. Now, with this spiritual cloud fruit, this problem had been solved. It seemed that in the future, she would have to pay more attention to looking for heavenly treasures that could improve her mental strength. Congratulations, Master. Chapter 37:14. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Now we can set off for the magic training tower with a peace of mind. Yes. However, when Bailey Hongzhuang opened the door, she found that D Beichen and the others were not there. She couldn't help but feel puzzled. Why aren't they here? Slowly walking out of the residence, Bailey Hongzhuang was thinking about where D Beichen and the others went when Ao Lingxiao noticed the appearance of Bailey Hongzhuang. He quickly rushed over and said, "Junior sister Bailey, you finally came out of seclusion." Seeing that the always cold Ao Lingxiao actually took the initiative to talk to her, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes couldn't help but become more puzzled. What's wrong? Did something happen? Something big has happened, Ao Lingxiao quickly said. Junior sister Shangguan has been missing since yesterday afternoon. Until now there has been no news at all. Following Ao Lingxiao's words, Bailey Hongzhuang's face suddenly changed. Her dark eyes shot out a terrifying light. What did you say? Ying is missing? Noticing the sudden burst of aura from Bailey Hongzhuang, Ao Lingxiao couldn't help but be stunned. His heart was filled with deep surprise. At that moment, he was actually shocked by Bailey Hongzhuang's aura. That's right. Now everyone is helping to search. It's just that we don't know who did it. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyelids drooped. A figure appeared in her mind at the first moment, Chu Yunyao. She didn't know that her actions were definitely done by Chu Yunyao. However, her intuition told her that it must be Chu Yunyao. Where are Beichen and the others now? They are now outside the Penglai Palace. You can find them if you go. Without waiting for Ao Lingxiao to finish speaking, Bailey Hongzhuang had already disappeared from his sight in the blink of an eye. Beichen. Noticing Di Beichen's figure, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately called out. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's voice, Di Beichen and Wen Xiren's eyes lit up. They quickly came to Bailey Hongzhuang's side. Hongzhuang, you're out of seclusion? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Yes, I heard that Ying has disappeared. What's going on? Things are like this. Di Beichen told Bailey Hongzhuang everything that had happened before, and then said, we thought about it, but we couldn't find out who did it. Did you offend anyone yesterday? Are you saying that the other party used you to lure Ying out? Of Senov and of Hongzhuang's Bailey Hongzofyi. That's right. Di Beichen nodded. The other party came prepared. I'm afraid that Ying was taken away after leaving Penglai Palace. Wen Xiren looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with burning eyes. Hongzhuang, do you know who did it? Looking at Xiren in front of her, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but be shocked. She had never seen Wen Xiren so depressed and desperate. It was a kind of despair that came from the bones. Only the last glimmer of hope remained. Once it was destroyed, it would be a bottomless abyss. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. I thought of someone. Who? Di Beichen and Wen Xiren's expression changed. They hadn't found any information because they couldn't find a suspect. Since Bailey Hongzhuang had an idea, they had one more clue. Chapter 37:15. Chu Yunyao. Di Beichen frowned. Who is this? When Xiren and the others who had rushed over after hearing the news could not help but be stunned when they heard Bailey Hongzhuang mention the name Chu Yunyao. They asked in surprise, it's actually Chu Yunyao? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Yesterday afternoon, I met her when I went to the resource hall with Ying. At that time, Ying helped me find the cloud spirit fruit, and that Chu Yunyao also wanted the cloud spirit fruit, so she forced Ying to give it to her. Ying did not agree, and a conflict broke out between the two sides, but in the end, Ying and I still came back. So that's how it is. Everyone immediately understood. No wonder they could not think of a possible candidate. It turned out that it was Chu Yunyao, who had a conflict with Bailey Hongzhuang yesterday afternoon. It's just a cloud spirit fruit. I didn't expect this Chu Yunyao to be so calculative. Di Beichen frowned, his eyes covered with a layer of haze. This kind of conflict could be said to be very normal between cultivators. He did not expect that the other party would want to take Shangguan Ying's life for this kind of thing, and her actions were so fast. From the looks of it, that Chu Yunyao probably wanted to lure you and Ying out together so that she could retrieve the cloud spirit fruit along the way. It's just that she didn't expect you to go into closed-door training after you returned, and only Ying went over alone. Renzime said. Bailey Hongzhuang's face revealed a deep sense of guilt. This matter was completely caused by me. If I hadn't gone into closed-door training as soon as I came back, this wouldn't have happened. This matter is not something you can expect. Di Beichen comforted. Senior apprentice brother Ren, do you know where Chu Yunyao lives? When Xiren hurriedly asked. Now that they knew who the culprit was, they naturally couldn't delay any longer. Renziheng nodded. I know, follow me. In the next second, everyone walked in the direction of the inner hall, But in the process of walking, Ran Ziheng could not help but remind everyone. This Chu Yunyao is not a person to be trifled with. Her strength is also very outstanding in the inner hall. Although we have guesses now, we have no evidence. If we question her like this, I'm afraid she won't admit it. Yes, although I'm not familiar with Chu Yunyao, I have some understanding of her. This woman is very arrogant. As long as she likes something, she must get it. In addition, her sister's strength is very strong. Ordinary people are not willing to provoke them. It's very troublesome. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were sharp. Then in your opinion, doesn't this seem like something Chu Yunyao would do? Hearing this, Ran Ziheng and the others looked at each other and nodded. It's possible. Is. Inging. You is. You. Is. You. You. Her. Is. Be. Ease. No matter who it is, if they dare to touch my Ying, they will die. Xiren's cold voice sounded as if it came from hell. It was cold without any temperature. And the hidden killing intent made people feel a chill from the bottom of their hearts. Ran Ziheng and others looked at Xiren in horror. They could feel the deep hatred in Xiren's heart. It was so terrifying that it made people shudder. Chapter 37:16. Senior Brother Ren, do you know how strong Chu Yunyao is? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Ren Ziheng. This Chu Yunyao actually dared to attack Ying. Now that such a long time had passed, she didn't know how Ying was doing. If something happened to Ying, Bailey Hongzhuang subconsciously looked at Xiren. If something happened to Ying, then she would definitely not forgive herself. Now what she hoped most was that Ying was not killed. But no matter what, she and Chu Yunyao were irreconcilable. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's question, Ren Ziheng understood that Bailey Hongzhuang and her party were planning to fight Chu Yunyao head-on. This was really a battle to the death. Junior sister Bailey, Chu Yunyao is very strong. I advise you not to be her enemy. This is not good for you at all. Do you think this situation is possible? Xiren's cold voice sounded again. Ren Ziheng was stunned, and Chu Jinfeng and others looked a little helpless, and then showed a look of understanding. If I understand correctly, her cultivation should have reached the 9th level of the Purple Realm, and her sister Chu Yunshang seems to be stronger. It is because of this that they can be so unscrupulous. I know that your talent is amazing, but as far as the current situation is concerned, you are still not their opponent. Even if you really want to be enemies, I advise you to avoid the edge for the time being. It is not too late for a gentleman to take revenge. I believe that you will succeed in the future. After understanding Chu Yunyao's failure, the hearts of Di Beichen and others couldn't help but sink. An inner palace disciple was different from an outer palace disciple. That was the true strength of an outer palace disciple. Wanting to fight and defeat an inner palace disciple was not an easy task. Moreover, the gap between them seemed to be unusually large. My big brother is right. Chu Yunshang still has a sweetheart in the Penglai Palace. Her strength is also extremely strong. Once this conflict is made, it is equivalent to poking a hornet's nest. Temporary patience is the best choice. Ren Zimei couldn't help but remind. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were gloomy to the extreme, and her voice was cold to the bone. So what if they are strong? Offending them was the same as poking a hornet's nest? It's best if she didn't do it. As long as she did, I'll make her understand what it means to poke a hornet's nest. Bailey Hongzhuang's cold voice was powerful and resonant. Her eyes were filled with anger. Anyone who dared to touch the people she cared about, she would not let them have a good time. Indeed, in terms of strength, they weren't a match for Chu Yunyao and the others, but in terms of charisma, she was confident that she would absolutely not be inferior to Chu Yunyao and the others. As Bailey Hongzhuang's words fell, Ren Ziheng and the others couldn't help but be stunned for a moment, but they quickly reacted. Junior Sister Bailey, if we use your medical skills, this is indeed possible, Chu Jinfeng said. He believed that many cultivators would be happy to receive a favor from a top-notch doctor. Not long after, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others finally stopped. Junior brother Di, the building in front is where Chu Yunyao lives, Ren Ziheng said. Di Beichen glanced ahead. Just as Ren Ziheng and others were about to continue moving forward with them, Di Beichen said, Senior brother Ren, you can take us here. Leave the rest to us. Chapter 37:17. We are already very grateful that you can bring us here. Chu Yunyao and the others have a great influence in Penglai Inner Hall. Even if we really want to be enemies, it's our business. You don't have to get involved in this mess. Di Beichen looked determined. From the various situations introduced by Ran Ziheng and the others, Chu Yunyao and the others were indeed not to be offended. This matter was related to the four of them, so they had to take action. At worst, they would not stay in Penglai Inner Hall, but they could not implicate Ren Ziheng and the others. Di Beichen is right. Leave the rest to us. Senior brother Ren, you have helped us a lot. We are very grateful. In the next second, Di Beichen and the others ignored the opposition of Ren Ziheng and the others and walked directly into Chu Yunyao's residence. Seeing Di Beichen and the others leave like this, Ren Zimei's face was full of worry. In their situation, there will definitely be a conflict if they go in like this. If they fight here, Junior Sister Bailey and the others won't have any benefits. Junior Brother D and the others are thinking for us. In our situation, if we offend Chu Yunyao and the others, I'm afraid our future in Penglai Inner Hall will not be easy. Ren Ziheng sighed. If he was a little stronger, he really wanted to go in with Di Beichen and the others. However, he was not strong enough. The fate of the cultivators who had offended Chu Yunyao and the others was still vivid in his mind. He could not completely ignore their own safety. Then what should we do now? Chu Jinfeng's face was very ugly. This feeling is really suffocating. Let's look at the situation here. If Junior Brother D and the others are really in danger, then we will immediately go to find Master Long. Ran Ziheng looked serious. However, Junior Brother D and the others are not innate people. Since they asked us about the strength of Chu Yunyao and the others before, they must have already made plans in their hearts. Even if there is a conflict, it should not be in such a disadvantageous situation. Renzime nodded slightly. What you said makes sense. I hope nothing happened to Junior Sister Shangguan. Otherwise, I'm afraid this situation will be out of control. Just thinking about Xiren's expression made Renzime's heart sink. Although they hadn't known each other for a long time, she knew the feelings between Xiren and Wenxinya. Once something happened to Shangguan Yingying, when Xiren would not be able to control it even if he wanted to. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two arrived, Chu Yunyao looked at Bailey Hongzhuang indifferently and said, Isn't this Junior Sister Bailey whom I just met yesterday? How come you're free to visit me today? In the face of Chu Yunyao's hypocritical chatter, Bailey Hongzhuang was not in the mood to feign civility at all. Where is Yingying? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Hearing this, Chu Yunyao raised her eyebrows slightly and said with a chuckle, Haha, did I hear wrongly? How dare you ask me where your companions went? How would I know where she went? Don't pretend. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were slightly cold. There is no one else except you. You'd better tell us where Yingying is in full detail. Otherwise, it won't be good if we make a fuss. Are you threatening me? Chu Yunyao narrowed her eyes. The next second, Chu Yunyao's eyes became disdainful. You inexplicably came to my residence to question me about this groundless matter, and now you're threatening me. Don't you think it's ridiculous? Chapter 37:18. Chu Yunyao. Tell me what you have done to Yingying. When Xiren could no longer control his emotions after seeing Chu Yunyao's disgusting appearance, an astonishing murderous aura rose in his heart. Looking at Xiren's blood-red eyes, Chu Yunyao was also a little surprised, but she quickly recovered. I didn't expect that woman to have an infatuated lover. It's really surprising. Cut the crap. We are not in the mood to waste time here with you. Wen Xiren said coldly. Seeing this, Chu Yunyao glanced at Wen Xiren with displeasure, spread out her hands and said, I have already said it very clearly. I have never seen Shangguan Yingying. Naturally, I don't know where she has gone. Chu Yunyao, why do you have to hide it now? Don't you think you are amazing? Don't tell me you don't even dare to admit what you have done? Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes. At this moment, looking at Chu Yunyao's expression, she was more and more sure that her judgment was not wrong. Yingying's disappearance must have something to do with Chu Yunyao. Don't lie to me. Chu Yunyao sneered. I am indeed unhappy to see you, but this matter has nothing to do with me. If you don't have evidence, don't talk nonsense with me. If you don't believe me, you can ask the cultivators living nearby. Everyone knows that I have been staying here since I came back yesterday and have not left at all. The next moment, Chu Yunyao walked out of the house directly, attracting the disciples living around. These disciples who have just joined the inner hall are really impressive. They actually came here to challenge me. Everyone help me testify. Have I been staying here since I came back from the resource hall yesterday and have not left at all? Listening to Chu Yunyao's words, the cultivators living around also came out to watch the show. Indeed, Chu Yunyao only went out for a while at noon yesterday. After coming back, she has been with me and has never left. I can testify to this. I came out a few times and saw Chu Yunyao. She should have never left. Chu Yunyao turned to look at Bailey Hongzhuang and said, Now you should have heard it clearly, right? This matter has nothing to do with me. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but frown. She didn't believe what Chu Yunyao said. It was precisely because her performance was flawless that it was the biggest flaw. Since you've done this, you've naturally planned everything. I'm sure you've arranged the alibi a long time ago. When Xiren said, Do you mean that I colluded with others to deceive you? Chu Yunyao laughed, and her eyes suddenly became gloomy. Who do you think you are? Do I need to do that? When Xiren's expression also turned ugly. The other party's arrogance had been fully displayed through these few words. Chu Yunyao was indeed here yesterday and didn't leave. We even chatted with her for a long time. I'm afraid this matter really has nothing to do with her. Some of the surrounding cultivators also spoke up again. Chu Yunyao's expression changed. Looking at the appearance of the crowd, Bailey Hongzhuang felt that these people did not seem to be lying. In this way, this matter was really a little strange. Hiring a murderer. Chapter 37:19. Di Beichen and the others couldn't help but look at each other. They had the same idea. Chu Yunyao's alibi was too deliberate. It was precisely because it was too deliberate that they were more and more sure that it was Chu Yunyao who did it. However, without evidence, Chu Yunyao could always deny it, so they couldn't do anything. Chu Yunyao could afford to waste time, but they couldn't. Chu Yunyao, if anything happens to Yingying, I will never let you go. Xiren looked at Chu Yunyao fiercely, and a strong hatred erupted in his chest. He wished he could tear the person in front of him into pieces. Noticing Xiren's fierce gaze, Chu Yunyao's eyes flashed with a trace of fluctuation. If you dared to confront me directly, you wouldn't have left with your tail between your legs yesterday. Bailey Hongzhuang stared at Chu Yunyao. Didn't you go through so much trouble just to make sure that I can't find any evidence? Let me tell you, even if I don't find any evidence, I can still be sure that it was you who did it. Bailey Hongzhuang's deep black eyes flashed with a cold and crazy light. She looked at Chu Yunyao with certainty. You'd better pray that Ying is still alive. Otherwise, I will definitely let you taste the taste of regret. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. Chu Yunyao, you were the first to provoke this matter, so you have to be prepared for crazy revenge. Di Beichen's face was gloomy as he slowly said, every word deeply hitting Chu Yunyao's heart. Chu Yunyao looked at the three people in front of her in surprise. She couldn't believe it. The cultivation of the three people in front of her was not even a match for her. But when she heard their fierce words, her heart was shocked for no reason. She actually felt a little guilty. This was too unbelievable. Her ink-black jade-like eyes were like a black whirlpool, flickering with a cold light. Yunyao, I'll ask you one last time. Are you going to tell me or not? You want to pin this groundless crime on me. I advise you to give up this idea. Chu Yunyao was unmoved. I can see it clearly at a glance. Where is Shangguan Yingying's shadow? Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you're Master Long's favorite. This isn't a place where you can behave atrociously. Bailey Hongzhuang, it won't do you any good if I report this to my superiors. You'd better get out of here while I'm trying to persuade you. You. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were sharp as she looked at Chu Yunyao. Her fists were clenched so hard that her knuckles were white. This damned woman wanted to make them unhappy with such a method. Chu Yunyao's room could be seen at a glance. Shangguan Yingying couldn't be here at all. The most important thing was that Chu Yunyao refused to admit it. They didn't know whether Shangguan Yingying was still alive. Ran Ziheng and others rushed over after seeing that Chu Yunyao's door was full of practitioners. After learning about the situation, they couldn't help but transmit a voice to Di Beichen. Junior brother Di, Chu Yunyao and Chu Yunshang are twin sisters. Could they be covering up for each other? Di Beichen was stunned after hearing the news. They only knew that Chu Yunyao had an elder sister, but they didn't know that they were twin sisters. Chapter 37:20. With Di Beichen's words, all the cultivators present were stunned, and their faces flashed with deep astonishment. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichen in surprise, but soon understood. She was shocked. She really didn't expect that they were twin sisters. What do you mean by that? Chu Yunyao frowned. Of course I am Chu Yun. You said that you have been with others since you came back yesterday. This alibi is a bit too deliberate. You sisters are exactly the same. Maybe you are not Chu Yunyao at all, but Chu Yunshang. Her eyes were as bright as stars, shining with sharp and boundless light, as if she could see through everything, making people unable to hide. At the same time, there was a burst of discussion around. What Di Beichen said is right. The two sisters are exactly the same. Even if they are familiar with each other, they often mistake them for each other. If the two of them collude, it is really hard to say. I don't know how Chu Yunyao got into a conflict with Bailey Hongzhuang. Di Beichen and others have been looking for Shangguan Yingying since yesterday. Now they are here. I'm afraid it's not far from the truth. Who knows? There are many people who make trouble for Chu Yunyao on weekdays. It seems that they have a deep grudge. Chu Yunyao's face changed. What nonsense are you talking about? My sister has been busy with closed-door training these days and has not come out at all. Many people present know that this is not a secret. Who knows when she will come out of seclusion? Xiren's face was gloomy. He was sure that it was Chu Yunyao who did it. Although this woman insisted that it was reasonable, he could feel that this woman was a little guilty at that moment. There are many people who pay attention to my enchantment in the inner hall of Peng Lai. If she comes out, you will definitely not be the first to notice. Chu Yunyao's voice was slightly cold. Cut the crap. In short, if you can't find evidence, don't come to me to make trouble. As soon as she finished speaking, Chu Yunyao no longer paid attention to Bailey Hongzhuang and the others and directly closed the door. Looking at the tightly shut door, the faces of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others turned extremely ugly. Judging from Chu Yunyao's performance, I'm afraid she has made up her mind not to tell us where Yingying is. Di Beichen said in a low voice, his eyes cold. Under such circumstances, if we want to make her tell us everything, we have to be stronger than her. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Chu Yunyao's attitude had explained everything. Unless they forced Chu Yunyao to say it, They would not be able to get any information at all. Most importantly, their current strength was weaker than Chu Yunyao's. Damn it! Xiren's rage had reached its peak. I'm going to kill this woman. Xiren, calm down first. Di Baichen grabbed Wen Xiren. It's not good for us to make trouble here now. We have to think of a way. Since she keeps saying that we have no evidence, she must be very confident in her approach. If we don't find the evidence, she will never let go. We can wait, but Ying can't. Xiren couldn't help but go crazy. His mind was full of Shangguan Ying's current situation. Chapter 37:21. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen looked at each other, their faces full of annoyance and helplessness. They clearly knew who did this, but because of their lack of strength they could only stay here, which was really a grievance. If they had evidence, then as long as they found Master Long they could solve this problem, but without evidence Chu Yunyao would not admit it, and they had no other choice. I'm going to release the news. Whoever wants Chu Yunyao's life, I can help him refine the elixir. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice dropped to the freezing point. She would not let Chu Yunyao continue to be so arrogant. Di Baichen and others looked at each other. They believed that someone would be willing to do this method. However, it would take some time. At this moment, a voice came into Bailey Hongzhuang's ears. Bailey Hongzhuang, if you want to save Shangguan Yingying, then go to the Green Mountain of Penglai Island alone. If you dare to tell this news to others, then Shangguan Yingying will only have a dead end. What to do, you think about it yourself. Don't try to hide it from me. Your every move is in my eyes. As long as they know, Shangguan Yingying will die immediately. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes suddenly changed. It was really Chu Yunyao. This damn woman's scheming was so deep. It was just for a Yunling fruit, but she went through so much trouble. Di Baichen and others looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's slightly changed expression and couldn't help but ask, Hongzhuang, what's wrong with you? Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. Nothing. It's useless to continue to stay here. Let's go back first. Di Baichen and others nodded. They had to go back and make a long-term plan. Inside the house. Yunshang, have you sent them away? He Jinjun walked to Chu Yunshang's side and asked casually. Chu Yunshang nodded. These guys don't seem easy to deal with. Yunyao really likes to cause trouble. Forget it. Although they have already become inner palace disciples, the difference in strength between them and us is too great. Yunyao is merely playing around. These fellows are simply unable to pose any threat to us. I heard that Bailey Hongzhuang has made a great contribution this time. It's really troublesome to make a move on her now. Chu Yunshang shook her head helplessly. I just came out of seclusion, and I have to help her with this kind of boring thing. I have to control her well in the future. Don't worry, it was done beautifully. Not a single trace was left behind. Don't worry. He Yunjun hugged Chu Yunshang. Those guys, if they die, they die. No one will care. Night slowly fell. Di Baichen and the others had been looking for clues, intending to find evidence. As long as someone had done it, there would definitely be some traces left behind. They did not believe that nothing would be left behind. At the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang also walked in the direction of Green Mountain when no one was paying attention. Since she heard Chu Yunyao's words, she was relieved. As long as she did not arrive at Green Mountain, then Yingying would be fine, so she waited until now to set off. Master, that Chu Yunyao deliberately attracted you. I'm afraid she is fully prepared to take your life. Chapter 37:22. Bailey Hongzhuang's phoenix-like eyes narrowed slightly. I'd like to see what kind of inescapable net she has set up for me. Vaguely, she always felt that it was strange for Chu Yunyao to go through so much trouble for a Yunling fruit. If Chu Yunyao did not want to, she could have done it directly yesterday afternoon. Penglai Palace did not prevent conflicts between practitioners. It was not a big deal to fight openly. It was a bit strange for her to go through so much trouble. Shangguan Yingying, it's dark. Do you think Bailey Hongzhuang will come to save you? Chu Yunyao looked at Shangguan Yingying in front of her with a smile. At this moment she was tied to a tree. Her clothes were covered with blood, and the exposed wounds were very dazzling. She looked very miserable. Shangguan Yingying looked at Chu Yunyao angrily, but she was too lazy to speak. Bah! Chu Yunyao whipped Shangguan Yingying, and suddenly there was a blood-red wound on her body. Hiss! Shangguan Yingying frowned, and her pretty face became distorted because of the pain, but she stubbornly refused to beg for mercy. In her opinion, this woman was completely crazy before. Yesterday, when she was in the room, she was informed that Xiren and Di Beichen had a conflict with someone outside. She rushed over to take a look, but she did not expect that she would be directly knocked out after going out. When she woke up, she was already tied here by Chu Yunyao. You don't want to talk to me? Chu Yunyao stepped forward and pinched Shangguan Yingying's chin directly with one hand. The huge force made Shangguan Yingying's forehead ooze cold sweat. In my opinion, Bailey Hongzhuang will not come. You took great pains to fight for the Yunling fruit for her, but she is unwilling to save you. Are you disappointed? What do you know? Shangguan Yingying snorted coldly. A selfish and arrogant guy like you must think that no one is more important than yourself, right? Of course. Chu Yunyao raised her eyebrows proudly and loosened her grip on Shangguan Yingying's chin. 5 fingerprints had been imprinted on her chin, which showed that she had used a lot of strength before. In my opinion, you are just an idiot who has been used by others. You have been reduced to this point, but you still think that Bailey Hongzhuang is sincere to you. It's ridiculous. You're such a person, so of course you'd think so. Hongzhuang isn't someone you can compare to. He. Chu Yunyao chuckled. You idiot. If Bailey Hongzhuang really dies for you, it's not too late for you to say that. Otherwise it just proves how stupid you are. Shangguan Yingying looked at Chu Yunyao speechlessly. It's just a Yunling fruit. Do you have to go through so much trouble? What do you know? Chu Yunyao's face changed, and her eyes were sharp and paranoid. If it's just for a Yunling fruit, I naturally won't go through so much trouble. But Bailey Hongzhuang shouldn't. Shouldn't what? Shangguan Yingying frowned and had some doubts in her heart. They had just met Chu Yunyao yesterday. What did Hongzhuang do? She shouldn't be liked by Duan Huali. Chu Yunyao's voice lowered, and her deep eyes seemed to be lost in thought. Shangguan Yingying was stunned. At this moment she understood that the problem was here. Chu Yunyao did such a thing because of Duan Huali. Chapter 37-23. Shangguan Yingying looked at Chu Yunyao speechlessly. She had never expected that Chu Yunyao would kidnap her because of this matter. This was an undeserved disaster for them, okay? Duan Huali was simply a hindrance. That's what she did wrong. Chu Yunyao's face became ferocious. If she obediently accepted Duan Huali, it would be fine. How dare she ignore him? What right does Bailey Hongzhuang have to ignore him? Who does she think she is? As soon as these words came out, Shangguan Yingying was completely speechless. She looked at Chu Yunyao blankly for a moment and said, Are you crazy? You are crazy. Chu Yunyao scolded angrily. Shangguan Yingying looked at Chu Yunyao as if she was looking at a fool. If you are sick, go and treat it. What does this kind of thing have to do with us? It's not right to be liked by Duan Huali or not to like Duan Huali. What do you want? Shangguan Yingying was already very unhappy to be tortured by this crazy woman. Now hearing this crazy woman's strange remarks, Shangguan Yingying almost felt that there was something wrong with her brain. You don't understand feelings at all. Chu Yunyao's eyes were distant with a trace of pain. Shangguan Yingying was dumbfounded. I don't understand feelings? I don't understand feelings? No matter how you look at it, there is something wrong with your brain, right? Duan Huali likes a lot of women, but each of them is just a game. He doesn't treat any of them sincerely. This kind of woman is nothing at all, Chu Yunyao said slowly. The next second, her eyes suddenly became sharp. But he has never treated a woman seriously. Shang Guanying, who thought that Chu Yunyao was completely crazy, understood a little at this moment. Although this woman's idea was very strange, she had to admit that she really liked Duan Huali. Otherwise, with Duan Huali's degree of unfaithfulness, ordinary women couldn't stand it at all. She actually liked him all the time. Sure enough, only a weirdo would like a tortoise and a mung bean. I've never seen Duan Huali so serious. Chu Yunyao stared at Shang Guanying, her eyes paranoid and crazy. Bailey Hongzhuang has rejected him so much, but he doesn't care at all. He has never been angry with me because of a woman because I have a different meaning to him. But he is angry with me for Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang. All this is Bailey Hongzhuang's fault. So I want Bailey Hongzhuang to die. I will never allow another woman who treats Duan Huali differently to appear. Her dark eyes flashed with a strong murderous intent. It's best that Bailey Hongzhuang appears today. Then I can save myself a lot of trouble. If she doesn't appear today, I have to find another way. It was not until this moment that Shang Guanying finally understood why Chu Yunyao had taken great pains to use her to attract Bailey Hongzhuang. It was because Chu Yunyao didn't want Duan Huali to know that Bailey Hongzhuang's matter had something to do with her. In this way, Chu Yunyao really put a lot of thought into this matter. She had always regarded Duan Huali as a playboy. She liked Hongzhuang just because of her appearance. But now, according to Chu Yunyao's analysis, Duan Huali was very serious about Hongzhuang. Chapter 37-24. There was some doubt in Shang Guanying's eyes. She found that Duan Huali's romantic debt was really amazing. This messy love triangle was really confusing. You're wrong. The person he really likes is me. Chu Yunyao's eyes changed and she said, I look the same as my sister. He just accidentally mixed us up. Shang Guanying was slightly stunned and immediately understood that Chu Yunyao and Chu Yunshang were twin sisters. In this way, Duan Huali didn't know the situation and mistook the two sisters for the same person, did he? If that was really the case, then it would really be a good show. Maybe he likes your sister and mistook you for someone else? Shang Guanying looked at Chu Yunyao in front of her. Anyway, the two sisters looked the same. Only Duan Huali knew whether he was pursuing Chu Yunshang or Chu Yunyao. As soon as these words came out, Chu Yunyao seemed to be stimulated by something, and her face was extremely ugly. The next second, she rushed to Shang Guanying like crazy. She pulled the latter's shoulders with both hands and shook them constantly. As she shook them, she shouted, What nonsense are you talking about? He likes me. It's me. The sharp voice was a little hysterical. Chu Yunyao seemed to be possessed. Shang Guanying was constantly shaken and hit against the tree. The pain made her injury worse again. Psycho! Shang Guanying shouted. She regretted it. She shouldn't have talked seriously with a lunatic. This woman couldn't listen to anything at all. The reason why Duan Huali treated her differently might be that she was mentally ill. Who could stand such madness? No wonder Duan Huali didn't accept it. Bah! Chu Yunyao slapped Shang Guanying's face, and her expression returned to calm. No matter what, Bailey Hongzhuang dares to attract Duan Huali's attention. It's her fault. I must kill her. Chu Yunyao's face was ferocious and her eyes were gloomy. As for you, if you dare to compete with me, you will also die. At this moment, Shang Guanying didn't want to say anything more to Chu Yunyao. This woman was completely unreasonable. She thought she was a princess and everyone should listen to her arrangements. She didn't understand how a woman with such a personality could live until now. She should have died a long time ago. However, she was most worried about Bailey Hongzhuang. Chu Yunyao had told her that if Bailey Hongzhuang wanted to save her, she had to come alone. With her understanding of Hongzhuang would never leave her alone. But once she came, Hongzhuang would be in danger. Although Chu Yunyao was a lunatic in her eyes, she had to admit that Chu Yunyao was indeed very strong. After being captured, she had resisted. But Chu Yunyao's cultivation had already reached the 9th level of the Purple Realm. She was no match for her at all. Although Hong Zhuang could fight above her level, the gap between the 9th level of the Purple Realm was too big. If Bailey Hongzhuang really came alone, it would be really dangerous. She only hoped that Bailey Hongzhuang didn't come alone, or didn't come at all. If something happened because of her, it would be the most unacceptable thing. At this moment, a subtle voice sounded in the distance. At the same time, Bailey Hongzhuang's familiar voice also sounded. Chapter 37:25. Listening to this voice, Chu Yunyao's lips slowly raised a sneer, and she looked at Shangguan Yingying playfully. It seems that you are right. This Bailey Hongzhuang is also an idiot. She really came alone. Shangguan Yingying's face suddenly became ugly. Hongzhuang is not, you are the idiot. She knows that I am stronger than her, but she still dares to come alone. What is it if she is not stupid? Chu Yunyao sneered. The friendship between idiots is ridiculous. It's better than a guy like you. I don't know if anyone will come to collect the corpse when you die. Shangguan Yingying sneered. Chu Yunyao's face changed and she snapped, are you looking for death? Don't worry, when I teach Bailey Hongzhuang a lesson, you will soon accompany her to hell. Bailey Hongzhuang walked on the Green Mountain. There was no one around. There was no other sound except the sound of birds and insects. She frowned slightly. There was no need for Chu Yunxiang to lie to her. Chu Yunyao and Shangguan Yingying should be here. Master, why is there no movement at all? Xiao He was a little confused. The scope of the whole Green Mountain was not small. If they were to find it, it would take a lot of time. Maybe the distance is still a little far. Chu Yunyao is afraid that I will not come. If she knows that I am here, she will be very happy. Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly heard some movement in front of her. Her beautiful black eyes flashed with a bright light, and she immediately quickened her pace and walked forward. Not long after, Bailey Hongzhuang finally saw Chu Yunyao. At the same time, she also saw Shangguan Yingying, who was tied to a tree and was very dispirited. From the shocking wounds on her body, it could be seen that she had been tortured inhumanly. Even her face was painted with a big cross by Chu Yunyao, and it was dripping with blood. They often learned together, and injuries were common, but she had never seen Shangguan Yingying so miserable. An indescribable anger rose in Bailey Hongzhuang's heart. The raging flames burned in her eyes, and her eyes were full of killing intent when she looked at Chu Yunyao. Bailey Hongzhuang, you're finally here. Chu Yunyao took a step forward with a sneer on her face. I was worried that you would become a coward and not dare to come. Bailey Hongzhuang stared at Chu Yunyao with her cold eyes, and her voice was extremely cold. What did you do to Yingying? Hearing this, Chu Yunyao smiled slightly, then spread out her hands and said, it's nothing. As you can see, I just taught her a lesson. Damn you. Unfortunately, you're the one who's going to die. Chu Yunyao sneered. I didn't expect you to really think of yourself as a hero. You actually came here alone, When Shangguan Yingying saw that Bailey Hongzhuang really came alone, she couldn't help feeling sad. Hongzhuang, this is a trap. Noticing Shangguan Yingying's guilt and worry, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but say, Yingying, don't worry, I will take you away. Chapter 37:26. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were cold. You spent so much effort to attract me here. Don't you want to take my life? Yes, I warned you before that if you offend me, you will have to pay the price. Chu Yunyao's face was ferocious. You are really fast. The Yunling fruit has been absorbed by you. The reason why she took action immediately yesterday afternoon was largely because of the Yunling fruit. There was only one Yunling fruit in the Penglai Palace. She didn't know when it would appear again. But she didn't expect that Bailey Hongzhuang would act so fast. As soon as she returned, she went into closed-door cultivation. She originally intended to attract Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying together. But she didn't expect that only Shangguan Yingying came out. Now that the Yunling fruit had been absorbed by Bailey Hongzhuang, she naturally had no other way. After catching Shangguan Yingying, she took her Qingkuan bag. But she didn't expect that there were only some odds and ends in the Qingkuan bag. There were no valuable treasures at all, and there weren't even many spirit stones. She was really poor. However, Bailey Hongzhuang in front of her was a very famous doctor. She believed that the resources in her Qingkuan bag must be very rich. If she killed Bailey Hongzhuang, not only would she be able to vent her anger, but she would also be able to make a lot of money. If Bailey Hongzhuang still had some amazing prescriptions, it would undoubtedly be the best. For this, Shangguan Yingying was also a little glad. Cultivators had always put things in their Qingkuan bag. But if the Qingkuan bag was accidentally robbed, the loss would not be small. Since knowing that Bailey Hongzhuang had the Chaos Ring, they put all the important things in the Chaos Ring. They only put some spirit stones and small things in the Qingkuan bag. In this way, even if they lost it, they would not lose much. It was because of this that Chu Yunyao didn't get anything. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Chu Yunyao faintly and was a little annoyed in her heart. Just for a Yunling fruit, she didn't expect that Yingying would fall into such a predicament and be tortured like this. What is not yours is not destined to be yours. You're really confident. I really don't understand what's so good about your self-righteous appearance that Duan Huali likes. Chu Yunyao looked at Bailey Hongzhuang coldly. She wore a white plain dress on her body, which set off her beautiful figure. Her beautiful face was exquisite and dazzling. Even though she had an angry expression on her face, she still gave people a beautiful feeling. The bright and cool moonlight sprinkled on Bailey Hongzhuang's body, adding a trace of blurriness and otherworldly beauty. However, the more she found Bailey Hongzhuang, the more Chu Yunyao wanted to kill Bailey Hongzhuang. She was not willing to admit that her heart was full of jealousy. If she was born with Bailey Hongzhuang's appearance, Duan Huali would be devoted to her. But it didn't matter. As long as Bailey Hongzhuang was dead, all these problems would not exist. Hearing Chu Yunyao's words, Bailey Hongzhuang was stunned for a moment. Only then did she understand that Chu Yunyao did this for Duan Huali. There is no relationship between Duan Huali and me. If you want the Yunling fruit, it's fine. But if it's for him, then you are thinking too much. No. Chu Yunyao waved her hand. Duan Huali can't see through your method of playing hard to get. Do you think I can't see through it? Chapter 37:27. Hongzhuang, don't talk to her. This woman is completely crazy. Shangguan Yingying said, this woman can't tolerate anyone who has anything to do with Duan Huali, even if Duan Huali is unyielding. Listening to Shangguan Yingying's words, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately understood. She looked at Chu Yunyao again with a complicated look. It seemed that their previous judgment was right. There was indeed a story between Chu Yunyao and Duan Huali. Now it seemed that Chu Yunyao was deeply in love with Duan Huali, so she looked at her with deep hatred. Don't play dumb. Chu Yunyao looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with disgust. I know a woman like you very well. If you didn't try to seduce him, how could he be serious about you? Looking at Chu Yunyao's hateful look, Bailey Hongzhuang also believed what Shangguan Yingying said. This woman was indeed crazy. She was completely like a mad dog biting whoever she caught. Psycho. Bailey Hongzhuang rolled her eyes. Chu Yunyao, you like Duan Huali doesn't mean that everyone will like him. What you can't get by any means doesn't mean that others want it. By the way, you really don't have good taste. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. She really didn't have a good impression of Duan Huali. This kind of man was fickle and could do anything behind the scenes. She didn't know how many women had been played by him. She really didn't understand. Chu Yunyao looked good, but she actually liked Duan Huali like this. However, Duan Huali didn't like her. It was really incredible. What do you know? Chu Yunyao jumped up as if her tail had been stepped on. Don't you superficial women all say that Duan Huali is bad, and then refuse him? I've seen plenty of women like you. Seeing that Chu Yunyao seemed to have determined everything, Bailey Hongzhuang was too lazy to explain more. Obviously, no matter what she said, it was useless. Why waste her breath? At the same time, she couldn't help but sympathize with Duan Huali. If Chu Yunyao wanted to interfere with anyone that Duan Huali liked, then wouldn't every woman that Duan Huali liked die for no reason? You're not talking. Am I right? Chu Yunyao looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with disdain. Over the years, there had been a lot of women around Duan Huali. She had already seen through these women. Each of these women seemed to think that they were Duan Huali's true love, but the final result clearly told them that this was just their fantasy. Only Bailey Hongzhuang in front of her had a different meaning in Duan Huali's heart. She could allow Duan Huali to play with other women, but she couldn't accept that Duan Huali was serious about a woman. Therefore, Bailey Hongzhuang must die. Bailey Hongzhuang took a deep look at Chu Yunyao and said, I suddenly understand why Duan Huali doesn't like you. With Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the pride and disdain on Chu Yunyao's face disappeared, and her eyes flickered. What nonsense are you talking about? Don't you know it in your heart? If Duan Huali liked you, you wouldn't be as crazy as you are now. Chapter 37:28. You're talking nonsense. Duan Huali has me in his heart. I'm the one who is the most special to him. Chu Yunyao shouted. Looking at Chu Yunyao's crazy and persistent appearance, Bailey Hongzhuang was no longer willing to say anything more. Chu Yunyao was obviously living in her own world. No matter what others said, it was useless. At this moment, she was only thinking about how to save Shangguan Yingying and leave. Shangguan Yingying's state, although she looked very miserable, most of her injuries were superficial, and her internal injuries were not serious. However, it was not easy for her to take Shangguan Yingying away because Chu Yunyao's strength was there. Once they started fighting, she would never be able to take advantage of her. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's indifference fell into Chu Yunyao's eyes. It was a joke and disdain, and suddenly there was a burst of anger in her heart. Bailey Hongzhuang, die. In the next second, the Yuan power in Chu Yunyao's body suddenly burst out. The Yuan power of the 9th level of the Red Realm was very shocking. The pressure was directly exerted and mercilessly crushed Bailey Hongzhuang. Feeling this kind of pressure, Bailey Hongzhuang's face changed slightly. So far, she had never fought with a cultivator of the 9th level of the Purple Realm. At this moment, after feeling Chu Yunyao's pressure, she understood that the gap in strength was indeed not small. Then, Bailey Hongzhuang did not hesitate to use the blood chi field. With her strength of the 6th level of the Purple Realm, she was no match for Chu Yunyao, who was at the 9th level of the Purple Realm. What's more, Chu Yunyao was an inner hall disciple who often practiced in the field. Anyone who practiced in such an environment for a long time would have amazing fighting strength. The rich blood chi burst out, and Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were covered with a layer of blood red. Then, her aura directly changed from the 6th level of the Purple Realm to the 8th level of the Purple Realm. Bang! Bailey Hongzhuang didn't hesitate to throw a punch at the pressure. She only heard a small sound, and the pressure on her body immediately dissipated. She also felt her whole body relax, and the pressure on her body disappeared. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang's cultivation had suddenly improved so much, Chu Yunyao's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. She had also heard that Bailey Hongzhuang had obtained the inheritance of the blood chi field, but this was the first time she had seen this blood chi field. It really lived up to its reputation. The blood chi field is indeed powerful. However, the difference in strength between you and me is simply too great. Even if you use all your skills, your cultivation is still inferior to mine. Chu Yunyao's lips curled into a sneer. But it's a pity that one of the inheritors of the blood aura field will fall from today onwards. Bailey Hongzhuang sneered. You are indeed strong, but it won't be easy for you to kill me. You think too highly of yourself. Chu Yunyao's eyes were full of ridicule. In the next second, she attacked Bailey Hongzhuang without hesitation. The huge fist enlarged in Bailey Hongzhuang's pupils. The light in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes changed a little, and then her fist fiercely met the attack. Bang! The two fists collided, and a burst of energy shot out. Ta-ta-ta! Bailey Hongzhuang took a few steps back, and a sharp pain came from her fist. In that instant there seemed to be a slight sound coming from her finger bones. Chu Yunyao looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's sudden change in expression, and the corners of her lips couldn't help but curl up a little. Bailey Hongzhuang, I told you long ago that you are not my opponent. Chapter 37-29. You came here today to die. Chu Yunyao smiled proudly. Since you are a great doctor, you must have mastered a lot of prescriptions. As long as you die, these things will be mine. Bailey Hongzhuang miscalculated. If it was just because of Duan Huali, she didn't need to go through so much trouble. It was just that Bailey Hongzhuang was too conspicuous in Penglai Palace, so she had to get rid of her without leaving any evidence. She had been in the inner hall for a long time and knew the rules of the inner hall. As long as there was no evidence, even if others wanted to stand up for the dead Bailey Hongzhuang, it was useless. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were cold. She had already expected that Chu Yunyao's strength was very strong. But after this fight, she understood that Chu Yunyao's strength was stronger than she thought. You really like to dream, Bailey Hongzhuang said coldly. Hearing this, Chu Yunyao chuckled. It's useless even if you are stubborn. Today, let me tell you that the end of being a hero is a dead end. The next moment, Chu Yunyao's figure swept and turned into a rainbow to attack Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang did not dare to neglect. She had already clearly understood the strength gap between the two. If she did not deal with it carefully, she was really likely to suffer a big loss here. Bang bang bang. The two figures quickly intertwined. Bailey Hongzhuang tried her best to dodge Chu Yunyao's attack, but the latter obviously would not let Bailey Hongzhuang do as she wished. She followed her closely like a maggot attached to a bone, not giving her any chance to escape. When the two figures separated again, Bailey Hongzhuang's figure was already a little embarrassed. Her hands trembled slightly under the sleeves. Chu Yunyao's strength was stronger than hers. In such a head-on process, she was inevitably injured. Master, we're here to help you, the three beasties hurriedly said. However, Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. Chu Yunyao's cultivation is much higher than yours. Even if you help me, it won't be of much use. On the contrary, you will be seriously injured. Then you can't handle it alone. The eyes of the three beasts were filled with anxiety. They also understood that Chu Yunyao's cultivation was 3 levels higher than theirs. It was really difficult for them to cross such a gap in strength. Don't be impatient. I won't be defeated so quickly. I'll think of a way, Bailey Hongzhuang said in a deep voice. Chu Yunyao looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, whose face was a little ugly, and the teasing smile on her lips couldn't help but become more intense. Now you know the difference in strength between you and me, right? Unfortunately, it's too late now. After Shangguan Yingying noticed this scene, she couldn't help but shout out, Hongzhuang, don't worry about me, just go. Yingying, don't worry. I'll definitely save you. The next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang's dark eyes swept towards Chu Yunyao. The battle has just begun. You don't have to come to a conclusion so quickly. Oh, Chu Yunyao chuckled, but her eyes suddenly turned cold. Since that's the case, then I'll directly beat you to the ground. Let's see if you can continue to be stubborn. Immediately after, the yuan qi in Chu Yunyao's body surged out continuously. Her hands flipped quickly, and one by one, complicated seals were quietly formed. It was obvious that she was serious. You're tuning into the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.